So I worked with these scientists. One is an astronomer, the other one is a physicist and an astronomer. So when people say, do you believe in UFOs? It is not religion. There is data that we have collected. And the Buga sphere from Colombia, that ball that's all aluminum, it has fiber optics. And Colonel Corso is the greatest hero for in 1998. He had fiber optics from Roswell, from a crashed flying saucer. I was with him for 2 years. So we have been back engineering. This is Army though. This is just Army. The creatures, the 2 little boys that saw the crash. I was working on that for 10 years. And he was watching this sphere that was going around, and it hit some power wires. And then it came down and he was able to pick it up. All the information, the name of the people and everything are going to be on 3 links that I'm going to give you, Sabi. I'm going to give you 3 links. But the man that had it was threatened. His life was threatened. Companies called him and said, it belongs to us, we're coming to get it. Saturday, 2 false policemen, false, that were not policemen, didn't get the sphere. It is technology. It is interesting in that it is very, very, very hard aluminum that not even aerospace uses. It has fiber optics inside, all different kinds on the polymer. And it also has hieroglyphics or glyphics. We don't know where they are. On the outside, the writing looks Phoenician. If it is extraterrestrial, that if it is, then what they're doing is surveillance and information gathering. They are not on vacation. It's Teller who gets up and says to Oppenheimer, this bomb isn't big enough. We have to, I'm going to work on the hydrogen bomb, the H-bomb. He talks about the H-bomb tests and the 3 feet of dead fish, and killing all the coral. And on 2 occasions, he said these UFOs flew over, and of course they flew over. You're killing all the fish and the coral in the Pacific. The testing was H-bomb, Keller. And so that's the only time that when I was filming him in my apartment in Rome, that people broke into my apartment to take the film footage. And that was a very dangerous time because I've done some work that's been very, dangerous because I wanted Dee to tell the world. Einstein and Oppenheimer could say, we got a problem with UFOs around bombs. Corso, he told me, I asked him about the Santilli footage of the autopsy, and he said, oh, I had that. He said, if you see the Santilli footage, they peel off, the gray has this big black, it's not an eye, it's a light collecting layer. And he's talking to Robert Kennedy because he's part of the intelligence community. So I'm going, oh, you told Robert Kennedy? Oh, so of course, Jack Kennedy, the president, knows. Why can't it come out? Because you're making money. You're making money off of it. But Colonel Corso in his speech said, yeah, we made money, but then we gave it to commercials so everybody could use it. But he also said that all of this stuff was made for war. The technology is made for war. Alan Hynek and I didn't want to see what was inside the craft. I mean, he basically just wanted we were putting pins in maps, There's a sighting here, there's a sighting there, it landed. Nobody asked about what was inside or who was inside. And Alan Hynek began to change his mind with the Lonnie Zamora case, Socorro, I think it was 1964. When this man, this credible policeman, sees these beings, it isn't American, it's everywhere. Craft would land, a Zendro would come up, which is like a mist around it, because then the beings, who were people, come off, and you can be in the same atmosphere with them. Where it happened with Adamski and Menger and Tassel in the 1950s, they are not Nordic, reptilian, and Greys. You have to look at each a cosmic culture, each alien group as different. In Brazil, it was a little creature.
Yes.
You say the extraterrestrials want us. Which ones? And I was close to Clifford Stone, as I was close to Robert Dean and Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, and Colonel Corso, and Paul Hallier, the former defense minister, and all of these people. I got information, and Clifford told me that he did 12 crash retrievals, where some of them were alive and some of these beings were dead. And he said he had a first aid manual. First aid. That means if they were sick or they were, lying on the ground, they could look at the manual, look at the picture. There wasn't a picture, there were just drawings, and know how to help them. Well, we had this book with 57 different drawings. I'm going, oh, well, which extraterrestrials are we talking about now? I mean, it gets very complicated.
Sziasztok! Először is arra kérlek, hogy ha tetszenek a videók, nyomj egy lájkot, oszd meg legalább egy ismerősöddel, és iratkozz fel a csatornára, hogy ne maradj le a következő tartalmakról sem. Javaslom továbbá, hogy csatlakozz a privát Facebook csoportunkhoz, és ha szeretnéd támogatni a csatornát, elméletileg működik a szuperköszönet funkció is, illetve látogass meg a csatorna webshopját is, ahol van mindenféle ufós cucc. A mai vendégem Paola Harris, olasz-amerikai fotóriporter és tényfeltáró újságíró, aki több mint 4 évtizede kutatja az idegen eredetű jelenségeket. 1978 óta aktív ezen a területen, de 1980 és 86 között dr. J. Allen Hynek mellett dolgozott, aki a CUFOS igazgatója volt, miután otthagyta a Project Blue Bookot, vagy Project Kék Könyv projektet, az amerikai légierő UFO propaganda szárnyát. Paola számos dokumentumfilmben és televíziós műsorban szerepelt, többek között olyan platformokon, mint a Gaia csatorna, Open Minds vagy Beyond Belief. Paola olyan emberekkel dolgozott, vagy interjú volt, mint például dr. J. Allen Hynek, Philip J. Corso Ezredes, dr. Michael Wolff, Clifford Stone, Charles Hall, dr. Dan Burish, dr. John Mack, dr. Jacques Vallée, Wendell Stevens, Billy Meier, Britt Elders, Edgar Mitchell, az asztronauta, Robert Dean, dr. Stephen Greer, Linda Moulton Howe, Travis Walton, Nick Pope, Russell Targ, Ingo Swann, Paul Heiler, Grant Cameron, James Fox, Jim Peniston, Ricardo González, Sixto Paz Wells, és még sorolhatnám. Ezeket az interjúkat részletesen megtaláljátok Paola könyveiben. Paola 7 könyvet írt, amiből nekem csak 5 van meg, de mindenképp ajánlom, hogy szerezzétek be magatoknak. Tele van rengeteg infóval, rengeteg fényképpel, ezeket később be fogom mutatni. Szintén ajánlom figyelmetekbe a weboldalait, mint például a starworksusa.com-ot, vagy a paolaharris.com-ot, a YouTube csatornáját szintén, ugye, Paola Harris, vagy a Facebook oldalát is megtalálod, valamint a Patreon oldalán tudod támogatni a munkásságát. Ezt azért is szeretném említeni, mert vannak néhányan, akik beszólogattak, hogy ebből mi hülyére keressük magunkat. Tehát az ilyen embereknek csak annyit tudok mondani, hogy én személyesen az elmúlt 9 hónap alatt kb. Egy millát vágtam bele, hogy több 100 esetet lefordítsak és megosszak a magyar emberekkel. Paola az elmúlt 50 év alatt legalább 50-szer annyit befektetett, és garantálom nektek, hogy ezt nem fedezte még a Mexikó városi útját sem, amit most 80 évesen tett meg. Szóval, tehát több forrásból is tudom, hogy vannak hónapok, amikor Paola alig bírja kifizetni még az albérletét is, szóval, és még mostanában is, tehát nem csak régebben volt ilyen. Szóval az a minimum, hogy feliratkoztok a csatornájára, és lájkoljátok a videóit. Ahogy ezt már említettem Dóra csatornáján is, egy interjúban, elméletileg mire kijön ez a videó, addigra az övé is fent lesz. Számomra a 3 legkomolyabb UFO kutató a világon, Wendell Stevens, aki bár elhunyt, gyűjtöm a méregdrága könyveit, és valamikor csinálok róla is egy dokumentumfilmet. Jacques Vallée, akinek már 5-ször írtam, de még nem válaszolt, és persze Paola Harris. Tehát ő nekem a top 3 a világon a legkomolyabb UFO kutatók, bár Paola nem UFO kutatónak hívja magát, de mindegy. Viszont Paola nélkül rengeteg olasz, mexikói, kubai, perui, venezuelai, kolumbiai esetekről nem csak mi magyarok, de még az amerikaiak sem tudnának. Szóval tehát szerintem nagyon-nagyon fontos kulcsszerepet játszik az ufológiában, Paola. Szóval, ha készen állsz, akkor induljon az interjú. Yes, hi Paola.
Hello to all people in Hungary and all the people that are interested in the UFO phenomenon. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. And once again, I messed up the time, so sorry about that. Thanks again for being here. I would like to ask your. I know your background. I follow your work for a long time, but perhaps for the Hungarian audience, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Perhaps just like in summary, when did your journey begun into the UFO research, please?
Well, actually, I am an investigative journalist. I'm not a ufologist. And I began working in 1980 with Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is the godfather of UFOs. And the reason why was because I saw the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that movie touched me. So I knew he was a consultant to Spielberg. So I went to his Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois, and he happened to be there. And because I am Italian, I was born in Italy, he asked me to do work with him on Italian sightings because, you know, UFOs appear all over the world. This is 1980. So I worked with him until he died 1986. And then I moved to Italy for 15 years and could do more work and better journalism in Europe. So I was, you know, speaking on the Rai television. I could go to France. I could go to Switzerland and do the Billy Meier case. The pictures were too good and it couldn't be real. And and it was Photoshop. And they were giving me these things without recognizing that Photoshop didn't start until 1992. The pictures are too real. It's crazy because I just did an interview with the Friendship Amicizia case in Italy, the Pescara case, which was in 1956. And the pictures are incredibly clear. And it was in Italy, so Americans didn't hear about it. But the photographs are incredible too. So I thought as a journalist, what's going on here is it's staged. Whatever is going on, it's staged in that the beings want their photos taken, want the photos of the craft until they don't, until they don't for a particular reason. So the 1956 case, I was thinking of where I was in 1956. I saw the pictures on the Pescara coast of the Adriatic Sea, the Friendship case, and I'm going, this is going on all over the world, but we don't know about it because it's in another country. And the Meier case just happens to be in Switzerland. And half of the people don't even know like where it is. So let alone that I always, the arguments I've got, oh, it's on a fishing pole or, you know, it's CGI or anything. I'm going, nothing of what you say. Nothing of what you say makes sense because we're dealing with 1970s. And
76, yeah.
And
before the personal computer was even developed.
Yes. So we got reasons to look at everything and then I just talked to a major actor in Hollywood. He goes, oh, that story, you know, he hung a fishing pole and had, I said, oh yeah, and that's a fishing pole and all the cars are in the highway underneath the craft. One armed. And he's got a fishing. It's like the crazy arguments. So I end up as a researcher saying your opinion is not research. So did I go to Switzerland? Yes. Did I see Bill Meyer? Yes. I saw that he was living in a chalet, that it was more of a commune. There was a lot of people in that chalet, and I want you to go into detail about this, Britt. I saw that I went to all the hills where the photos were taken so that I could see the landscape, which is gorgeous. I don't think Smith Rudy is that easy to find, but they did tell me that on Sundays it's open to the general public, so he's not where you can't get to him. And then I had already lived through a $300 phone call from Ellen Hynek to Wendell Stevens in my house that I had to pay the bill for about Billy, because house, and I said, Wendell Stevens is on the phone, and Wendell, who I consider one of the greatest researchers that ever walked planet Earth, mostly because he was a field researcher and he went all over the world. He did so much work. He did so much work. And I hope you elaborate. He did the Billy Meyer case with you and your husband Lee. And before Billy Meyer, before I went to see him, what had happened was that I spent 5 hours in the Tucson airport making sure that I asked Wendell all the proper questions. And one of the things that Wendell told me, and Britt, I want you to talk more about this, was that when he was in the chalet with Billy, it would be snowing, and Billy would get the call to go and meet the Pleiadians, and Billy would walk out the back door and his footprints would disappear.
It was about 10 o'clock at night on the 10th of May, 1980, and Billy and I had just finished making some notes inside. And we walked out here, sat down on the couch together here to get some fresh air.
And then I got pain to my right backside, and I was turning a little bit on this way to right side, and then came the pain very strong to the other side, and I moved it back, and in that moment we heard the shot, and I felt something here near the head pulling into the wall, and there was coming out the dirt of the wall, and I was wishing them down from my head. And then we left here to run inside to get a lantern and the pistol to run out again to see what's happened around, if you can find somebody.
You couldn't find?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
And after you came here, did you find a bullet?
Yeah, we was looking on the floor,
Yes.
checked up everything, but we can't find a bullet. And then came my daughter, Gilgamesha, kicked away the sofa here, and here behind them down on the floor was this bullet.
Oh.
I think it's caliber by 7.5 millimeter.
Yes. What is this bullet called?
The nearest size we have is 30 caliber, but it's 7.7 meters, and Billy thinks it's a pistol bullet. It's a soft-nosed bullet with no jacket. Spreads out when it hits.
It's a very weak material, very soft.
So it's called dum-dum? Yes.
Well, that's what we'd call a dum-dum bullet, yes.
Dum-dum bullet. Oh. It's fit for this, yes. This hole.
Again, more like not here.
Yes.
Turn.
Oh, I see.
So I think it's correct.
I see.
I could do the work outside the United States. Later on in my career, when I was researching the crash in Socorro, New Mexico, before Roswell in 1945, month after the atomic bomb, that is when I met Jacques Vallée, who was also in the movie.
Good evening and welcome to June's Boulder Expo presentation. I'm Paul Sperry, and it is my pleasure to moderate tonight's presentation featuring two internationally acknowledged researchers and authors speaking about their latest book, Trinity, the Best Kept Secret. To render this event even more unique, joining them is José Padilla, the actual witness to this UFO crash over 75 years ago. Our speakers are connecting from San Francisco, Socorro, New Mexico, and Longmont, Colorado. To put this presentation into perspective, mankind's first nuclear explosion, Trinity, occurred on July 16, 1945. Just 20 days later, on August the 5th, the first atomic bomb in history on Hiroshima signaled the end of World War II. 1 month after the Trinity event, a UFO crash was witnessed by José Padilla just 20 miles from the Trinity site. It was almost 2 years later when the more famous Roswell UFO crash occurred 120 miles east of Trinity. Jacques Vallée is the author of at least a dozen books on UFOs and the paranormal, plus more traditional titles on science and technology. With an MS in astrophysics and a PhD in artificial intelligence, Jacques is particularly well positioned to write on this topic. Personal friends with the most highly respected UFO researchers, names like Hynek, Haldier, Corso, and Vogel come to mind, and respected research organizations, including Stanford Research Institute, the University of Texas, DARPA, and others. He brings much erudition to this topic. Jacques was the real-life model for the head researcher in the film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Jacques is a true scientist who investigates objectively, is willing to ask questions others won't consider, and follows the data wherever it leads. Paola, too, is a prolific author on UFO studies, having published books in English, Italian, Spanish, and French. With degrees in English, French, and science, plus a master's in education, he is ideally matched to complete this scholarly work with Jacques. One of Paola's signature accomplishments has been in locating, interviewing, and documenting the accounts of the world's most credible sources on unidentified aerial phenomena. She has established personal relationships with many of the greats, including Ellen Hynek, Colonel Philip Corso, Sergeant Clifford Stone, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and many more. Paola has tirelessly worked for decades to add credibility to the UFO phenomenon and bring it to the masses. She further sponsors seminars around the world, including Starworks USA in Laughlin, Nevada. Just 9 years old at the time of his sighting, José Padilla knew nothing of UFOs, had no preconceptions about what he was seeing, and thus was the perfect witness. He was accompanied by 7-year-old Remy Baca, and together these children returned many times to witness the Air Force cleanup of the crash site. Now 84, Jose previously served in the Korean War at age 17, worked for the state of California, and is now retired in Socorro, New Mexico. He has been in TV documentaries, but this is his first interactive presentation with his audience. Jose has had poor hearing since his eardrum was burst by the Trinity blast. So ask your questions slowly and distinctly.
I suggested, instead of my doing a presentation for Boulder XO by myself, that I could do it with my co-author and my partner in crime, Jacques Vallée, and with the actual witness, José Padilla. José is not computer savvy. He doesn't have a computer, but he is able to enjoy the fact that he is the protagonist in this book and that you people all appreciate his courage. This is a once in a lifetime situation that Jose has granted us to be part of this transmission. So I would like to just start out by saying that 9 years ago, I began working on this story, and that from that point of view, I learned about these two little boys, little Hispanic boys that were present on August 16th to view a UFO come in and crash about 20 miles from where the atomic bomb was blasted. And so I started working on it, getting their testimony. We've lost one. We've lost Remy Baca, the 7-year-old. We have the 9-year-old here. And as I'm working on this, 4 years ago, Jacques Vallée came in on the story because he parallelly had been working on it too, and we had lost Ron Brinkley, who was the researcher that Jacques was working with. So Jacques learned about me and we joined forces, and that's what brought out Trinity, which I think is one of the key books that will ever be written on a real case. Both the methodology and the history of this book, the way that we did this story, plus the history of this area are what's so important. And I'd like to pass it to Jacques, and then we'll have Jose tell the story of what happened. But Jacques, would you come in and talk about your involvement with this case?
Well, as you mentioned, Paola, I came in after you had already identified the two witnesses and recorded interviews with them. So I was able to work initially from the transcripts that had been done very professionally. And you introduced me to Mr. Padilla. What makes the case unique and what led me to become involved, and as you know, I must have gone back to New Mexico 5 times just in the last 2 years, is the fact that we have the testimony of the witnesses who were there even before the object arrived, which is exceptional. And the Roswell case is an interesting case, but the wreckage was discovered several days after the actual crash, and people had to locate the site where it happened. Here we have the privilege of knowing everything about the environment as it was before the object arrived and when it arrived. Furthermore, the two witnesses, Remy and Mr. Padilla, knew the environment intimately. And again, it's one of the main hurdles in the book was to translating for today's audience what the world was like in 1945. People, a 9-year-old driving the family truck. Well, of course, all the adults were in uniform, and they had not been demobilized yet. The kids had to be responsible. They had to take care of the cattle. They had to take care of the property for the family. And so it's a big challenge, I think, in the book was in getting today's reader to identify with the exceptional location and the exceptional times at the very end of the war. The sighting happened within 2 days of the capitulation of Japan. Most American able men were in uniform and were scattered all over the world. This object comes out of nowhere, flew over the property that Mr. Padilla was watching over, mainly watching over the cattle and the fences and the physical conditions of the property, which was 80,000 acres. Okay, and this object flies over, hits a communication tower. That tower was one of a network of towers around the White Sands area. It was still technically a military area. And that tower was there to mainly to help in the pilots who came in and out of Alamogordo and in and out of White Sands, because there were cliffs to the north of this site. There are cliffs that airplanes had been hitting or that were very dangerous to air traffic. So the tower was there for communication. The object comes out of nowhere, hits the tower, bends one of the legs of the tower, and then crashes, although it's a controlled crash. You know, an airplane would have blown up at that point. This object does not blow up. It's not a disk. It's not a flying saucer. By the way, the term flying saucer is still 2 years in the future. It's going to be invented by Kenneth Arnold, you know, 2 years later in 1947. There is no word for this. This object is an oval. They will describe it as an avocado, which turns out to be a very apt description of it. And it crashes. It digs a gouge in the earth, like making a road, you know, building its own, excavating its own road. So it must have been still under power at this point. It doesn't just crash and rest. It plows through the landscape. That road will be used later by the military when they come to recover pieces of that craft. And then it makes a turn and it stops against the side of a hill. Again, what do you do in a case like this when you're a witness in a time of war? Well, the first thing that your duty is to provide help to whoever might be wounded. And that's what the kids are going to do. Except that there is smoke, there is fire. The object never catches fire, contrary to what has been written in one of the books that peripherally talks about the case. The plants are burning, you know, the cactus, the creosote, the small bushes there are burning, and there is smoke, and it's very hard to know what's going on. The kids leave their horses behind and walk over to about 200 feet from the object, and then they see that this is no airplane. This is, again, a rounded, large avocado-shaped craft. And one panel has been blown out by the collision with the tower. And through that opening, they can see 3 human-like short men that they describe alternately as little men or as a sort of large insect. And but these creatures are breathing air. They don't have a spacesuit or anything like this. They are breathing air, and they seem to be in pain. And that's one of the very, you know, one of the first really dramatic moments in this history, which is, you know, is really an incredible human story. And
Maybe we can
I think that's what.
Jose tell his impression of that.
Yes, absolutely.
You did an amazing job with the framework of this book. So, but I'm hoping people will read it, giving the background. But let's ask Jose what he felt like when he walked down with Remy and with the binoculars. Go ahead, Jose, talk about it. Jose, talk about how you felt when you walked down and what you saw.
When we walked down, we saw 3 little men sashaying back and forth through that slight crack on that object. And I told Remy that these creatures were hurt, and I wanted to go in there to help them. And he refused to do that.
But you had binoculars, and was there fire? What was there?
No, I told him that I was going to go in there and help him anyway. and he started crying and wanted to go home, you know. So we wind up getting on the horses and went back to the ranch.
How close were you to the?
It was probably about 150 feet.
So you could see the beings very closely.
Yes, they were hurt. They were running back and forth,
Okay.
squealing like a rabbit when they're injured, or like a small born baby.
What did they look like?
They were like to me it seemed like they were like a fire ant standing upright. They had long arms, long fingers, 4 fingers.
What was the head like?
It looked like they had either a uniform or a real tight outfit.
And the head, was it normal?
The head was round. Their ears, their eyes were like a teardrop. The nose was like a couple of holes on it. The mouth was just a round object.
And did you see them through your binoculars?
I seen that through the binoculars, through that crack on that hole that was punched out.
And then you and Remy went back to tell your father?
We went back, told my father that we have found the cow and the calf, and we have found something else. Then my father told us to tie the horses down, and we went over and took Remy home. And he told us that we will return back the following day.
Did he talk to anybody, your father?
My father talked to that state police.
Was it Sheriff Apodaca? You said?
Apodaca was his name. And the following day, we all got together. They got on the patrol car, my father and the state police, and we followed them until we got to the crest side. And when we got there, everything was swept up, like someone had got a rake and rake everything up above there. And we couldn't see the craft. That's when my father and Apodaca thought that we were lying. All of a sudden, the sun started shining up. That's where the craft, the straight of the craft started coming up into the earth. That's when Apodaca and my dad went inside that craft and looked around and came out and told us not to go there back again, that there was a government property and they were going to take care of it.
So did you and Remy obey your father?
We went back, but we sneaked in a couple of times to when the soldiers came over and started gathering things, rubbish, parts of that craft, you know. And
Why didn't they see you?
we were hiding behind a mountain there where there were cactuses grown up like a tree. At that time, you know, the cactuses and were used to grow up real tall like a tree. We used to hide behind that shade of it.
So how many days did it take to do this?
It was almost 6 days when they started cleaning up, and that the soldiers started kicking parts of the crab into a gully there where the water used to run down. They didn't cover it. They were supposed to pick up the parts and take them over to that an inventory shed that they had, but they were not doing their job.
You also said that a flatbed truck came in.
That's when military brought a flatbed truck that they built an L frame to load that object on it.
The object that the military told you your father was a weather balloon. Did the military tell your dad that it was a weather balloon?
The military main guy there told my dad that it was a weather balloon that belonged to the government and they had to get it out of there.
I did not know about this lady until 2 years ago. And how did I find out about this lady? And I'll let Jacques explain who she is. Jacques and I were talking to Jose near his home, near La Jolla in New Mexico. We had been there like maybe 6 or 7 times. And we had been there, you see pictures of Jacques talking to Jose in the field, and we had been to his house, and we had been there so often. And this is why it takes so long. We were just sitting there talking to him again, and he said, I had a niece whose name is Sabrina, who lived with my father and mother, and she knew about what happened here. And we said, where does she live? And Jose said she's in Los Angeles. And we looked at each other at the same minute, and we said, oh my God, there's another witness. So when we went to question her, we both flew to Los Angeles to question. You remember we went to dinner and we questioned her. We found out she had information that Jose had no idea about. The reason why I'm telling you these details is because it takes work. It takes going back there 5, 6, 7, 8 times, having the conversation when new things come up. So we are very honored that Sabrina agreed to be with us. Jose couldn't because he can't fly. When the atomic bomb did explode, his mother opened the door because they were not told what was going to happen. She was blinded in one eye at 4 o'clock in the morning. She said, even Jose said, it was like the light of 1,000 suns. So it isn't like something happened and that's it. Jacques goes through the whole history of what was going on back then, which meant, and I'm going to add this really fast because people that don't read, he began to read about the Japanese part of World War II, and then he'd call me and say, read the book. So I was reading 5 books that he was reading so I could understand what he was going to write in our book. And the thing is that this is what's called research. You just don't slap a book together with superficial stuff. And we learned a lot about World War II. We learned a lot about Socorro. We learned a lot about the area. And I think the book is a great read because of your style of writing, Jacques. It's a wonderful read.
And the movie Close Encounters was about Jacques Vallée.
Yeah. One of the interesting things to mention about you is the fact that you were the person that Steven Spielberg modeled a character of a UFO researcher on in his classic movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I think he was intrigued with the idea of a French scientist running around the United States investigating the UFO phenomena.
You've been looking at this phenomenon for a long time. You've worked closely with Dr. Alan Hynek and other UFO researchers. You've written many authoritative books, and yet your perspective on the UFO issue seems rather unique in the sense that you don't seem to be jumping on the extraterrestrial visitors bandwagon.
That's what was the main point of disagreement with Steven Spielberg. When I met Steven Spielberg, he was about halfway through filming Close Encounters, and we had a long discussion about what UFOs could be. And of course, for him, The main point of the movie was entertainment, and it was appropriate for the UFOs to be extraterrestrial visitors. I think that from my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet, because I think they could be something much more interesting.
Something from another dimension of space or time?
I think what the UFO phenomenon is teaching us is that we don't understand time and space. Mm-hmm. Here are objects, I think we have to call them objects, that are physical, that interact with the environment, that cause effects on the witnesses, on the psychology and the physiology of the witnesses, and leave traces on the ground, and yet are capable of, appear to be capable of manipulating time and space in ways that go beyond what our physics understands today.
So I worked with Jacques Vallée for 5 years. So I worked with these scientists. One is an astronomer, the other one is a physicist and an astronomer. So when people say, do you believe in UFOs? It is not religion. This is not religion, do you believe? There is data that we have collected over 45 years, actually 60, actually 20 years since Trinity. And people should just start to connect the dots and look at the data. The data. Don't make ideas or, throw out opinions. And again, I really hope they read. Yeah, Connecting the Dots has.
I like when you say that.
I have 38 interviews because I don't know what's happening, but Dr. John Mack does, Jacques Vallée does, Alan Hynek, NASA, Richard Hoagland, Mars, all these people I talk to. So if you want to know the truth, you have to go to the people that are in the book. The other book that people should be reading now is Conversations with Colonel Corso.
I have it too.
Yeah, it's the one that talks about the fiber optics that he had in 1963. And you must have seen on Facebook my interview with Grant Cameron about the Buga-sphere, because I just returned from Mexico. And the Buga-sphere from Colombia, that ball that's all aluminum, it has fiber optics. And Colonel Corso is the greatest hero for, in 1998, in this book, says he had fiber optics from Roswell, from a crashed, flying saucer. So he worked in the Pentagon. He's not off the street. Yeah. He's not crazy. The man was the head of intelligence in 1945 in Rome. I was with him for 2 years. So we have been back engineering. This is Army, though. This is just Army. I don't know what the Air Force did because they don't have a Colonel Corso talk. I don't know what the Navy is in charge of UFOs. So I don't know what kinds of questions you want to ask me, but as a journalist, I'm trying to connect all the dots, and I suggest people read the original work. Trinity is the other book. I don't know if you have that.
I do.
Trinity is Jacques Vallée's an amazing book.
Yes.
Amazing book. It talks about the creatures, the 2 little boys that saw the crash. I was working on that for 10 years. So there's so much out there if you want to know. There really is. But you need to read.
That's right. Yes, that's what I'm telling everyone as well. I'm collecting books. I've got most of your books. I've got 2 other ones as well. I know you have 7 books altogether. I've got 5 of them. I will buy the other 2 as well. And I 100% recommend to everyone. So thank you very much for this answer. So a quick one, because yesterday I was watching you live with Grant. It was quite at night in my end. But I was watching that you talked about the Buga-sphere and you been to Mexico City. And I used to be a network engineer, so I'm actually quite good in fiber optics. And yes, I watched, I read your book, and I watched several interviews with Colonel Philip Corso, and I 100% believe him. And yes, so I'm not saying I'm an expert on fiber optics, but I had to learn because of my background. And I know they are super expensive. I know there's so much money in it, and other bits as well that he was talking about, like the night vision cameras, the laser, which the actual laser is inside the fiber optics as well, for those that wouldn't know. But anyways, so I would like to first to if you could talk about the Mexico City conference a little bit, just in summary, like what happened there. I know what happened, but for the Hungarian audience, please.
The big sphere was found by a man who was in a field, and he was watching this sphere that was going around, and it hit some power wires, and then it came down, and he was able to pick it up. All the information, the name of the people and everything, are going to be on 3 links that I'm going to give you, Sabi. I'm going to give you 3 links. So they get the name of the people, the fact that it was taken over from him, from a guy that wanted to help him, because my feeling is about the Buga-sphere is the fact that it might be back engineered, engineered technology that got away from the company that was doing it.
Yeah, I know you told me, or well, not me yesterday, but to Grant, that there is a possibility. Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, so Jose Restivo found it, but there was Don Jose had the actual sphere. He was giving it to him, and the only person that could analyze it, because he has the money, and he has in Mexico City a whole entire complex of video work, documentary, and does a daily UFO show, is Jaime Maussan, who is an investigative journalist like me. He is not a ufologist. And what I wanted to tell the people is that we have to cover the story, even if it was nothing, even if it was a hoax. We need to cover the stories. We have the responsibility. I just feel sad that regular journalists that are on TV and everything don't cover the story.
Yeah.
They need to cover the story. It's a responsibility. So Jaime is the only one that could do anything. But the man that had it was threatened. His life was threatened. Companies called him and said, it belongs to us. We're coming to get it. In fact, you probably saw in the interview that Jaime has policemen around.
Mexican police.
Saturday, 2 false policemen, that were not policemen, didn't get the sphere. So the thing is this, it is technology. It is interesting in that it is very, very, very hard aluminum that not even aerospace uses. It has fiber optics inside, all different kinds, on polymer, and it also has hieroglyphics or glyphics. We don't know where they are on the outside, and you must have some photos. I'm going to give you the links so you can see them. The writing looks Phoenician. So what is a modern company, if they made this, putting writing that's old writing, glyphs on the outside?
It makes no sense, It
makes no sense. And also the possibility that it is collecting information. It is, you can call it a spy probe or collecting information for someone. But we don't know who the someone is that's collecting information.
Yeah.
What I looked at is, first of all, I didn't touch it because everybody that had touched it got sick, nauseous.
You did good.
They got dizzy. So I don't want to touch it. I just took pictures, and then Jaime has a very good machine where you can look in the holes. The sphere has a hemisphere. It has an equator, and in there are holes you can see the fiber optics. Why are people interested? Well, Stephen Greer is interested because for years, Dr. Stephen Greer has been looking for a free energy machine.
Yes.
And there are no batteries. and this levitates, and this flies, and this has no power source they can see. So naturally, he's going to be interested.
And I'd just like to recognize the courageous people who picked it up and brought it. Now, there have been spheres found before, and in the United States, special forces thugs go in and get them, and people have been killed possessing them. Very smart that you keep it safe and that you also disclose it. It's transparent. Everything goes out. My assessment of this is pending, but it's certainly real. It's using an energy field and what we probably would say is electrogravitic, which means a type of anti-gravity effect from the electromagnetic forces. And whether it is a purely extraterrestrial origin or a mix of an ancient human extraterrestrial development, there are 4 or 5 possibilities. And this is what we want to look at. If we can get some of the materials and do carbon dating, we can, from the polymer, then we will know how old it is. If it predates this kind of manufacture, it'll be extraordinary. So I think there's a lot of investigation. We have some really good scientists here with us who can do those research with you and confirm and help and join forces with your effort. So my own sense of this is that it's obviously real, it's anomalous. We have seen these sort of spheres before, and I just want to share, 2 days ago, we debriefed a Green Beret he was in a subterranean facility, Crane, Indiana. It's a naval weapons station, and this is a top Green Beret not many years ago. And he was taken underground, very deep, and it was shown several extraterrestrial devices, one of which had a device like a translucent, almost like a small iPad, but extraterrestrial. And it was putting up above that screen a series of letters or symbols, deep ink black. And they are on this sphere, 4 or 5 of them. So it's very unusual. Now this gentleman, he didn't have any association with those symbols until he saw this sphere. And in the interview 2 days ago when we were in Los Angeles, I'm not going to disclose his name right now. His information is going to a investigation law enforcement group in the United States that I'm working with that are looking into the criminal aspects of the secrecy of this. But he said these are exactly the symbols that were floating above this device in the air, about a foot, and that they had some effect in his awareness, and he thought it had something to do with activation of DNA and consciousness, some very unusual effect. So very interesting new testimony. It was very surprising to us, and I wanted to share that with you. And so we're going to continue these investigations, but I think this is a very significant object, and the other gentleman was correct. We have 700 plus whistleblowers and people in the United States now coming forward. We have a lot of evidence. We do have some physical evidence. That wasn't correct. But something like this we have never had, because usually these get confiscated by thugs, criminals. And so good for you. You've done great work, all of you. I'm very proud to be here with you.
Daniel Sheehan is there because he wants to tell the American government, his Paradigm Research Group, their Paradigm, Institute, that they should be looking at everything. Connecting the dots means looking at sightings, looking at, marks on the ground, looking at, talking to witnesses, talking to pilots, but they should be looking at everything. This thing is flying without any energy source. And then there was Eric Burleson, who was a Republican. He was a congressman. Yeah. And he's friends with Hynek because Hynek has a house in Tennessee. So he was able to get a politician to come down. Mm-hmm. But we have to get politics. Thank God it was the Mexican Autonomous University, no politics, mm-hmm. that did all of the research. It didn't go into a government lab or, like here in the United States. I mean, the only way they can get grants, government grants, I don't think they're going to tell everything. So if you do it in a university that's autonomous, that has no connection to politics, they're going to give you the hardness scale. They're going to give you the if there's radiation. They're going to give you all the material they can look at. What would impress me from being there is they're going back to Tesla. They're going back to Tesla technology. I mean, the man that was up there that was the researcher speaking Spanish, and it's important because when people go online and go, oh, it's just a ball, it's a game, they don't speak Spanish. So how can they understand what a Spanish scientist, two of them from the Mexican university are saying? You know, you don't speak Spanish, so what did you understand? Zero. And people cannot make these assumptions based on zero. You must make these assumptions based on science. So because I'm Italian and I understand, Spanish, I knew everything he was saying, and he was putting up Tesla technology as a possibility. Now, if it's Tesla technology, we've had Tesla technology forever.
Yes.
At the beginning of the, we've had it at the beginning of the electrical revolution there.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I would love to see, and I love that you're in Hungary, is all these scientists coming together worldwide. And they come together, and France comes together, everybody comes together and says, this is so interesting. Can we find a source of energy that will get us off petroleum?
Yeah.
And you know what petroleum is in the Middle East. So we need petroleum. But if we had this kind of energy, and that's why Stephen Greer was there.
Yeah.
Maybe we wouldn't have all these wars.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have poverty. We would have a technology that's been there since the days of Tesla. So as a journalist, I have to be there. I have to cover the exact words of the Spanish man. I have to see who was there. This is a big mystery. This is a sphere, the Buga sphere from Colombia, and they're studying it scientifically. My colleague, Pier Giorgio Padilla, from Italy, was doing the analysis on the video. But, you know, you couldn't make up that video. There is no CGI. And this man is a very honest working man in the fields. And he's not going to make up anything. But we did the work on the video. Italy did the work to examine the videos real. So if you would permit it, I want to now, after I finish talking, give you the 3 links that I have with the exact research, so people will not be making mistakes and telling lies.
Yes.
And so, is it important? Yes. Is the sphere going to move out of Mexico City? No. You have to go there, and you have to study there, and you have to, because it's dangerous to move it. And, you know, it's advanced technology. Now, I don't know, and I'm not going to say it's extraterrestrial. I think it was being made or engineered, and it got away from whoever was making it. It's like it just went on its own somewhere, you know. But there is a link to Beijing, China, where there's another one. So what is the sphere doing in China? There's also one in Russia.
Peraí que o carro sacudindo é difícil.
Não, ele quer que eu bote cinto.
Vai devagar, né? Tá muito divertido isso. Olha que doideira, todo mundo bolado na praia. Ficou chapado embaixo e redondão em cima. Você tá andando de carro agora, Carol, ó. E ele vai mudando os formatos. E ele tá mudando o formato, olha que loucura, atrás da árvore, ó. Ele tava quadrado, agora ele parece uma panela. Ih, mudou muito o formato.
Cara, eu tô encucado até agora com esse negócio parado na praia. Ele tava encostado na água e agora ele tá em cima, parado. Um vento absurdo e o negócio não se mexe.
На 200-ки. Что за хрень-то?
Olha, quero. Lá pra baixo aqui.
Yo, what is this? What is this? That is no plan. I am walking slow, and I've been orb spotting for the last couple of hours. I don't know where that's going.
Pessoas viram. Agora, olha esse formato. O que você diz desse formato? Olha isso. O que parece com isso? É um carro ali embaixo, está nítido. Você vê o carro está nítido, as árvores estão nítidas, a rua está nítida, então esse objeto não tem distorção, não é uma coisa que está torcida, não. Não, está nítido, olha ali. Eu vou dar um contraste ainda mais para ele ficar mais nítido ainda. Olha esse formato. O que você acha o que é isso daí? Olha, é um círculo e ele vai passar em cima da parte clara, esse daí inclusive passa em cima do carro, né? E não aparece nada ao redor dele, não tem um bracinho de drone com hélice, não tem nada. Ele é um negócio redondo. Redondo e uma velocidade descomunal. Se você for comparar com os carros que está passando, você vê a velocidade que ele passa e o tanto que o carro desloca, né? O carro desloca praticamente nada perto da velocidade que esse treco passa. E ele vai exatamente na mesma posição, né? Ele passa por trás dessa rocha e vai numas cavidades que estão ali, ó. Ele some ali, porque no pôr do sol ali, também eu não virei o gimbal por esse drone, esse negócio aí, que eu não vi esse negócio. Então, se eu tivesse visto, é óbvio que eu ia emendar o drone atrás dele para saber onde que ele entrou ali, para saber para onde que ele foi. Essa imagem que vocês estão vendo é uma imagem ampliadíssima. Se você ver o vídeo original, estou tirando essa imagem do vídeo original, tá vendo ali? Ele vai para lá.
So, you know, I'm thinking, okay, well, everybody's doing engineering in different countries because they all have the same idea, to have a source of energy that is not, you know, breeze or, you know, oil or even coal or anything. We're in the dark ages, Sabi. We're in the dark ages. We've had this for, like Dr. Kerr said, since 1950. It's just being suppressed. And then I will add one more thing. That is why the UFO secret is secret, because the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
That's why it's secret. It's not because people don't believe in UFOs. It's not because, oh, we'll get afraid. No, they've done nothing to us. They didn't bomb us. They didn't kill us. They've been around forever, especially over nuclear power plants. So yeah, they've been around forever, and we don't know who they are, but they are not doing it.
Yes, I have collaborated before with Robert Hastings, you know, about his work, the UFOs and nukes. So I made a documentary for the Hungarian audience. He allowed me to use some part of his documentary, and I've taken many of the cases. So, you know, because most people, they don't really talk about, but yes, they were shooting, taking out nukes several times for years and years, probably they still do, but, you know, it's not really coming out. But yes, put this away. You are 80 years old and you're still on the field. You're going to, you look 50 by the way, but you're still going down to Mexico City because I didn't know there is a conference, to be honest. If there will be another one and if I can go, I go next week. I'll buy a ticket because I think this is serious business. Like you said, whatever, if it's debunked, okay, fine. I wouldn't say that it might be reverse engineer stuff because if it is, why would they put those hieroglyphic bits on it? I think, I don't know, it would be just extra. Why don't they put Air Force, or CIA or whatever? I don't know. But anyways, I want to see it. I want to see it.
The reason, I can tell you the reason why, because there's a connection between the old and the new. If you look at the crop circles have an image, but that image is a symbol. And when you have a symbol, it awakens everything, it awakens your consciousness. It is like a formula. It's like a formula. Mm-hmm. So whoever's doing this is going to put an ancient formula there. It's going to put an ancient formula that activates something. They're not going to put Air Force, comes from the Air Force. You're not going to put CIA, comes from CIA.
Makes sense, yeah.
Formula. Now, if it is extraterrestrial, that if it is, then what they're doing is surveillance and information gathering. Monitoring. And they want to know what we're doing, how we contaminate our airspace. They want to know, and I have so many cases that have that. If you read Trinity, Maurice Mass case in Valençol in southern France, those little beings were picking up samples of lavender. Mm-hmm. What would these three men be picking up lavender? And of course they hurt Maurice Mass because they had this pen that they froze him and he couldn't move.
Because this goes on all over the world, right? All different governments have
absolutely
the same stuff going on, right?
I've had a chance to study cases, of course, in France, all over Europe, and in South America, and of course in the U.S.
What's the weirdest case you've ever studied?
I'm not sure weird is the right term for it. The most stimulating from a scientific point of view is a case in France in which a farmer was starting his tractor at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he saw something in his field some distance away, and he thought it was a helicopter or maybe a strange car that shouldn't have been there in his field. Mm-hmm. So he walked over, and all of a sudden he was paralyzed. He saw two small creatures. They were not quite the ones that you have here. They were very small, but they had normal heads, and they had normal human features, but he was paralyzed. And they started speaking to each other in some strange language, went back into the object took off. The interesting thing is that there were traces left. Those traces were studied by various agencies of the French government. There was no question he was not lying. The traces could not be duplicated. And he was paralyzed for 20 minutes after the object left, which is very interesting from the point of view of the effect of the kind of radiation that object may have been creating. And this is a very common report on the part of witnesses with this feeling of paralysis.
In this lavender field in France, a close encounter of the third kind. Farmer Maurice Mas was 30 yards away from a small egg-shaped object. Two small creatures about 3 feet tall were standing in front of a sliding door. When one of them pointed a metallic tube at the witness, he was paralyzed. The humanoids climbed back on board the craft, which promptly disappeared. The patch of ground was left hard, like concrete. Mas could not get lavender to grow there for 7 years.
So I suggest people read Trinity because that case is amazing. And so they're here gathering information. they're gathering information, they're gathering plants, they're gathering everything they can. And I'm so happy that you did that documentary, because I just did something on pilots, and Jean-Charles Dubac, who was pilot Air France, who had 325 people in the airplane, said to me personally that the UFO was over a nuclear power plant in France. So I have to look at where these things appear, because I'm famous for saying they are not on vacation.
Yes, they're not tourists.
Yeah.
I usually say they don't, I don't think they are tourists, because they are all over the place. So all the time. But yes, now that we're talking about this nuclear stuff, I know that you've been talking about the Oppenheimer movie as well, and everyone who was actually watching the Trinity test, they also seen UFOs. In fact, not just the scientists have watched the test, but the UFOs as well. And I know people were there like Teller, and Teller was a Hungarian scientist. And I'm actually making a documentary about these people, all the Hungarian scientists like Teller, Szilard, John von Neumann, and I've got like 8 people already I've collected data on. And I also know that Philip Corso was talking about that when he was charged with the, what is it called, the division to feed these reverse engineer technologies out to scientists. Teller helped him. He said that in an interview.
In research and development of the Army under General Trudeau, Arthur Trudeau, and he drew me back in and put me in charge of that and established a foreign technology division for me. And these were the artifacts on a crashed flying saucer, which we used the word applied engineering. Was Dr. Teller was still alive, knows he helped him. And we fed these things. He gave me the job of finding industry or scientists that were close to these items and feed us to them in normal R&D projects.
And you're saying these items came from somewhere else?
They came from a flying saucer that's coming from New Mexico.
Roswell?
Yeah, Roswell. Well, I think some came, there might be another crash, but these came from New Mexico and Roswell especially. And General Trudeau gave me the job of working out a program, put these things out, feed them to industry, but there was provisions feeding it. They could have the patents, but they had to feed them out back to us as a competitive edge of the Army and to the American people and the world if necessary. Like the Japanese interviewed me, and I told them we put the integrated circuit out, and we also gave it to you. And I told the Japanese this right at the interview at Roswell.
Give me a little laundry list of the things that, the technologies that are at least partially responsible from the Roswell.
Well, there's the number one was the integrated circuit. Number 2 in importance was laser, because I had some laser instruments also. Then fiber optics came out of this. The imaging devices or night viewing devices came from this. Some of the work we did on electromagnetism and the ICBMs and came from this.
So, do you know anything else about him, about this?
I can just tell you a personal story. If you see the movie Oppenheimer, I think it's Teller who gets up and says to Oppenheimer, "This bomb isn't big enough. We have to. I'm going to work on the hydrogen bomb,
Yeah.
H bomb."
We all entered this room knowing a fission bomb was possible. Instead of uranium or plutonium, we use hydrogen. We compact the atoms together under great pressure to induce a fusion reaction. And we'll get not kilotons, but megatons.
So how do you generate enough force to fuse hydrogen atoms?
A small fission bomb.
So when I was in Italy, I noticed that there was a French man who had worked on the island of Fangatofa in Bikini Atoll, and he was talking about the H-bomb tests, and I didn't know that France did 800 of the H-bomb, which is 10 times as bad as the atomic. So
Yes.
he is public, so people don't have to say, "Oh, she's saying," no, it's public. Guy Andronic is in my book, Connecting the Dots. He's there. He talks about being on the island of Fangatofa. He talks about the H-bomb tests and the 3 feet of dead fish, and killing all the coral. And on 2 occasions, he said these UFOs flew over. And of course they flew over. You're killing all the fish and the coral in the Pacific.
The signal, 2 minutes to go, and everyone in the fleet stands by to picture history in the making, a scene that excites even the most experienced newsmen. Throughout the observant fleet, all eyes are trained on the blast point. "25 seconds, 20 seconds, 15 seconds. Dr. Holloway, leader of the Los Alamos group, and the entire fleet waits in almost agonized tenseness. Now but 5 seconds to go, and... the awful roar of the blast, equal to a discharge of 60,000 depth charges, each weighing 600 pounds, strikes the ears of the observers. Many miles away, the raging might of searing flame, crushing force, and deadly radioactive water is seen falling in a killing mist as the great circular wall of sea closes in on the guinea pig fleet. The combined forces let loose, swamp the nearby ships, and crush their thickly armored hulls like cardboard. Seen from the air, the towering waves set in motion appear to be only shallow ripples. The beach at Bikini gets a pounding. A television screen records an on-the-spot picture story. Drone planes fly through the turbulent air mass above Bikini Lagoon, deadly with its radioactive gases. And for days it was not safe for salvage crews to board the damaged ships. Geiger counters recorded the intense rays, which would have proved fatal if the ships had been manned. When task force observers under Admiral Blandy made the final tally of ships sunk or damaged, they found the Jap battleship Nagato badly damaged. She later sank. The destroyer Hughes was beached to prevent its sinking. 5 submarines were listed as sunk or damaged. And the historic old battleship New York was a battered hulk, its superstructure twisted and torn. The proud Saratoga, veteran of many naval campaigns, goes down many hours after the blast. Efforts were made to salvage the historic carrier the Japs could never sink, but old Sarah finally goes down in the cause of science. And now are shown the most dramatic pictures of the underwater blast. Here is the motion picture spectacle of all time. Tons of water alive with deadly rays. Awe-inspiring in its significance for man, who learned how to control the atom, but must now learn to control himself. There is but one defense against the atom bomb, and that is distance. And distance will mean nothing without world peace. This is Crossroads.
And America, I guess, did 1,400, and India did testing. So it isn't just France, it's everybody did testing. But the testing was H-bomb color. And so that was the only time that when I was filming him in my apartment in Rome, that people broke into my apartment to take the film footage. They broke into my apartment and they took my cameras, my computer, my mother's fur coat, jewelry to make it look like they were going in to rob.
Yeah.
And they did that. And that was a very dangerous time, because I've done some work that's been very dangerous, because I wanted Guy to tell the world, that they didn't kill us. They just flew over. They flew over and then he said he jumped in an airplane. He followed them, and he said all the instruments in the airplane began to fail. They thought they were going to crash, but then when the UFOs flew over the horizon, he said that the airplane, came back. Now, I think the extraterrestrials knew he was going to talk. They're not going to kill him. Mm-hmm. They knew he was going to come to Italy. They knew he's told the Centro Ufologico Nazionale 200-300 people his story. This story is out there. But people don't know because they don't read. If they had read my Connecting the Dots, they would have read what he said. For me, to shoot down a nuke on a like Hastings said, could be an act of war or it could be an act of peace.
Yes.
Miután évtizedekig vizsgáltam ezeket az incidenseket, véleményem szerint azok, akik az UFO-kat vezetik, más világból származó látogatók, akik provokatív módon cselekszenek az amerikai és orosz nukleáris rakétatelepeken, hogy üzenetet küldjenek nekünk, hogy mi emberek a tűzzel játszunk. A nukleáris háborúba való belépés tulajdonképpen öngyilkosság.
So you need to decide why this planet is still at war. Why this planet hasn't evolved, why this planet can't come together. I always said, if there's extraterrestrials, who are they going to come and talk to? Are they going to talk to China because it has the most people? Are they going to go to Russia because they have an active, satellite program and an active, rocket program? Are they going to come to the United States? Where are they going to come? So I think what needs to happen, and I'm going to give you this as a gift also, is what Einstein and Oppenheimer said in the letter to Truman in 1947.
Yep.
Because there were so many sightings around Trinity, they said we need a supra-United Nations where people come together as one species on Earth. So when they come here, they can go to one species. It's almost like Star Trek.
Yes.
They have the different people on the ship. They have the Klingons and they have the different planets. They have a federation. So I'm going to give you a letter to share with everyone, and I want you to translate it. It's been translated into Japanese because I was in Japan last year, and it's been translated into Spanish. And it's Einstein and Oppenheimer that say we got a problem with UFOs around bombs. And they didn't say, the letter's beautiful because it says relationships with celestial inhabitants. Correct. So it doesn't say relationships with enemies. It says and I'm glad Einstein wrote celestial inhabitants. And I'm going to tell you, Sabi, could you ask this question of Ryan Wood, because that's where it comes from. It comes from the MJ-12 documents. And yes. Ryan was close to me. And he said to me, Paula, my father and I had that letter from Einstein and Oppenheimer forensically analyzed. And I said, what is forensic analysis of writing? And he said, it's the paper, it's the typewriter, it's the ink, and it's the way that Einstein speaks. Because he says celestial with an R. We say celestial. They verified this letter. So if you're going to interview Ryan, talk about
I was talking to him yesterday. All right, so let's get into Majestic 12 documents. So I know you have spent a lot of time studying these MG12 or Majestic 12 documents. Can you break it down for us, like for the Hungarian audience? I'm aware of your work mostly, but what are these documents? I know you briefly already mentioned, but what is their origin? What convinced you that they require a serious study?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So for the audience, I mean, you can read them and look at them on majesticdocuments.com yourself. Yeah. And they're organized by, sources. Where'd you get them? So that's one way to look at the data set. The other is by date. So when were they dated per se? And they range from 1942, I believe, all the way up to into the 70s. So, and there, some are top secret code word, some are top secret, some are secret, some are confidential, and some are sort of unclassified. It's sort of like, it's a big trove of information to sort through. And each one is rated based on its authenticity rating or its credibility, really.
Yes.
And the way you determine the credibility of a particular document is, well, you look at a lot of different things. Well, first of all, is it an original document? And in some cases, we have original documents, like the Bowen manuscript, the Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers, is all original. And it says right here on the first page, the highest classification of this document is top secret magic, MAJIC. No foreign dissemination for U.S. eyes only, exempt from declassification or RADA, Originating Agency Declassification Authority. Special handling required, not releasable to foreign nationals. So just to dispel the myth that there are no originals, yeah, there are. So you can do original ink, original pen and pencil marks. You can do typewriter font analysis. You can do lots of traditional forensics.
Yeah, well, talk about this, because can you tell me why nobody talks about this? Why nobody talks about this letter?
Paola azt mondta nekem, hogy fordítsam le magyarra ezt a levelet, amit Einstein és Oppenheimer írt Truman elnöknek 1947-ben. Paola szintén mondta, hogy beszéljek Ryan S. Wooddal, aki megmondja majd, hogy mennyire hiteles ez a levél. Nos, beszéltem Ryannel is, bár nem erről a levélről pontosan, hanem a Majestic 12, vagy a Majestic 12-es dokumentumokból, amik ugye szivárogtatva voltak éveken keresztül. Viszont az interjú után ráírtam rá erre, mondom, oké, hitelesítse tényleg, hogyha vagy mit fog mondani rá, 20%, 40, 60, 80. És szóval írtam rá ennek, és elég gyorsan válaszolt, és megerősítette, hogy a dokumentum rendkívül hiteles. Forenzikus linguistic elemzést végeztünk Einstein, Oppenheimer és Tim Cooper, ahonnan származik, művein, hogy megállapítsuk a szerzőséget. Ezt egy harmadik fél, dr. Carol Chusky végezte, aki bírósági okleveles forenzikus nyelvész szakértő. Drága volt. A dokumentumot drága volt. Hát ha Ryan ilyet mond, mindegy, erről még beszélünk, a dokumentumot egyértelműen Einstein írta, azaz ő szavai és megjegyzései. Remélem ez segít, köszönöm, Ryan. Nos, nem kérdeztem Ryant, hogy mennyi volt, de rákerestem a neten, hogy mennyibe kerül egy ilyen analízis, és azt a választ kaptam, hogy UFO-kkal kapcsolatos történelmi jelentőségi dokumentumok, például az Oppenheimer-Einstein levél esetében Ryan drága kifejezése vélhetően inkább a felső árkategóriára utal, ami nagyjából 8000 vagy akár 15 000 amerikai dollár, tehát magyarul körülbelül 3 millió és 5 millió forint körül lehetett ez a hitelesítés ezzel a dr. Carol Cheskyvel. Szóval, tehát ezt a levelet csatolni fogom a privát Facebook csoportba, szóval ha bárki, igazából bárki megnézheti és elolvashatja, vagy próbálhatja debunkolni. Én amennyire tudom, eddig senkinek sem sikerült. Na de nézzük, mit is írt Einstein és Oppenheimer Truman elnöknek. Most megpróbálom felolvasni, tudjátok nagyon jól, hogy nem vagyok jó olvasásban, de nekivágok. Szóval, Cím: Kapcsolatok a más bolygókon élő lényekkel. 1947. június. Kapcsolatok földön kívüli emberekkel nem jelent alapvetően új problémát a nemzeti jog szempontjából, de annak lehetősége, hogy intelligens lényekkel kerüljünk szembe, akik nem tartoznak az emberi fajhoz, olyan problémákat vetnek fel, amelyek megoldását nehéz elképzelni. Hát ez már most egy elég komoly mondat volt. Elvben nincs nehézség annak elfogadásában, hogy lehetséges megértésre jutni velük, és mindenféle kapcsolatot kialakítani. A nehézség abban rejlik, hogy megpróbáljuk megállapítani azokat az elveket, amelyeken ezeknek a kapcsolatoknak alapulniuk kellene. Elsősorban szükséges lenne valamilyen nyelven keresztül kommunikációt létrehozni velük, és ezután, mint minden értelem első feltétele, hogy pszichológiájuk hasonló legyen az emberekéhez. Minden esetre a nemzetközi jognak helyet kellene adnia egy új jognak más alapon, amit talán úgy nevezhetnénk, hogy törvény a bolygóközi népek között. A Pentateuchusban, nem tudom mi az, a Pentateuchusban található irányelvek nyomán. Nyilvánvaló, hogy az a gondolat, hogy forradalmasítsuk a nemzetközi jogot annyira, hogy képes legyen megbirkózni az új helyzetekkel, arra kényszerítene minket, hogy megváltoztassuk a szerkezetét, olyan alapvető változást eszközölve, hogy az már nem lenne nemzetközi jog, legalábbis nem abban az értelemben, ahogyan ma felfogjuk, hanem valami teljesen más, így már nem is viselhetné ugyanazt a nevet. Ha ezek az intelligens lények birtokában lennének többé-kevésbé fejlett kultúrának és többé-kevésbé tökéletes politikai szervezetnek, akkor abszolút joguk lenne arra, hogy független és szuverén népekként ismerjék el őket, és megállapodásra kellene jutnunk velük a jövőbeni kapcsolatok jogi szabályzásáról, és szükséges lenne sok az ő elveik közül is elfogadni. Végül, ha elutasítanák minden békés együttműködést, és azonnali fenyegetéssé válnának a földre nézve, jogunk lenne a jogos önvédelemhez, de csak annyiban, amennyiben szükséges lenne ennek a veszélynek a semlegesítéséhez. Egy másik lehetőséget is figyelembe kell vennünk. Előfordulhat, hogy a Homo sapiens egyfajta önálló nemzetként telepedett le a naprendszer valamely más égitestén, és ott a miénktől függetlenül fejlődött tovább kulturálisan. Természetesen ez a lehetőség számos körülménytől függ, amelyek pontos feltételei jelenleg még nem találhatók előre. Ennek ellenére érdemes megvizsgálni, hogy milyen alapokon történhetett volna meg mindez. Elsőként, az adott égitesten, mondjuk a Holdon vagy a Marson olyan életfeltételeknek kellene fennállniuk, amelyek lehetővé teszik a stabil és bizonyos fokig gazdaságilag is önálló életet. Az élet lehetőségéről a Föld légkörén és környezetén kívül már régóta sokat spekulálnak, bár többnyire elméleti szinten. Vannak, akik már konkrét elképzeléseket megfogalmaztak arról, hogyan lehetne mesterséges légkört létrehozni, például a Holdon. Ezeknek az elképzeléseknek kétségkívül van tudományos alapjuk, és elképzelhető, hogy egy napon meg is valósulnak. Tegyük fel, hogy a Holdon található magnézium szilikátok akár 13% vizet is tartalmaznak. Az oda juttatott energia és gépek segítségével akár egy űrállomásról ezek a kőzetek felapríthatók, majd hevítéssel kivonható belőlük a kristályvíz. A vizet összegyűjtve, majd elektromos árammal vagy a nap rövid hullámú sugárzásával hidrogénre és oxigénre lehetne bontani, Az oxigént belégzésre lehetne használni, míg a hidrogén üzemanyagként szolgálhatna. Minden esetre, ha az égitesteken való tartós élet nem lehetséges, és csupán azok természeti erőforrásainak kutatására alkalmasak, olyan módon, hogy az ott dolgozó emberek folyamatosan cserélődnek, és nem tudnak tartósan megtelepedni, önálló életet élni, akkor valódi függetlenségről soha nem beszélhetünk. Most rátérhetünk arra a problémára, hogy mit kellene tennünk abban az esetben, ha az égi testek lakói, vagy más néven a Földön kívüli biológiai entitánsok, vagy EBE, tehát EBE, letelepedési szándékkal érkeznek a Földre. 1. pont. Ha politikailag szervezettek, és ez bizonyos, a miénkhez hasonló kultúrával rendelkeznek, akkor önálló népként ismerhetnénk el őket. Ebből a pozícióból kiindulva ők is mérlegelhetnék, hogy a Föld milyen fejlettségi szinten van egy esetleges gyarmatosításhoz. 2. pont. Ha viszont úgy ítélnek meg, hogy kultúránk politikailag egységtelen, akkor jogot formálhatnának gyarmatosításra. Természetesen ez a gyarmatosítás nem történhetne a klasszikus minták szerint. Egy magasabb rendű gyarmatosítási forma kidolgozására lenne szükség, ez talán valamiféle gyámsági viszony lehetne, amelyet például az ENSZ hallgatólagos jóváhagyásával gyakorolnának. De felmerül a kérdés, az ENSZ-nek jogilag van-e egyáltalán felhatalmazása arra, hogy egy ilyen gyámságot engedélyezzen. Az ENSZ-nek nincs joga ilyen gyámságot gyakorolni, hiszen jogköre nem terjed túl a tagállamai közötti kapcsolatokra. Csak akkor avatkozhatnak be, ha egy tagállam és egy földön kívüli nép közötti kapcsolat hatással lenne egy másik tagállamra is. Ha viszont ezek a kapcsolatok konfliktushoz vezetnének egy másik tagállammal, akkor az ENSZ-nek joga lenne beavatkozni. 2/b. Ha az ENSZ egy supraracionális, tehát zárójelben nemzetek feletti szervezet volna, akkor hivatalosan is illetékes lenne minden földön kívüliekkel kapcsolatos ügy kezelésére. Természetesen, bár jelenleg csupán nemzetközi szervezet, akkor is kaphatna ilyen jogkört, ha a tagállamai önként elismernék ezt a hatáskört. Nehéz előre megjósolni, hogyan fog viszonyulni a nemzetközi jog ahhoz az esethetőséghez, hogy égi eredetű civilizációk a Föld bizonyos területeit elfoglalhatják. Az egyetlen dolog, ami előre látható, az az, hogy a hagyományos jogi fogalmak mélyreható változáson mennek majd keresztül. Nem zárhatjuk ki annak lehetőségét sem, hogy egy technológiailag és gazdaságilag fejlettebb földön kívüli faj saját jogán úgy dönt, hogy elfoglal egy másik égitestet. De hogyan történne ez a fajta megszállás? 1. pont. Az a gondolat, hogy az égi állam kizárólagosan kihasználjon egy másik égi testet, valószínűleg elutasításra kerülne. Talán célszerűbbnek tartanák, hogy minden olyan civilizáció, amely képes elérni ezt az égi testet, jogosult legyen annak használatára. Ez azonban továbbra is privilégiumot biztosítana a fejlettebb civilizációknak. 2. pont. Egy másik lehetőség az égitest zónákra osztása, és ezek elosztása a különböző égi államok között. Ez viszont elosztási problémákat vetne fel, és sok más civilizációt megfosztana a lehetőségtől, hogy saját területtel rendelkezzen. Ha mégis kapnának egy zónát, az bonyolult eljárásokat tenne szükségessé. 3. pont. Egy harmadik lehetőség az úgynevezett oszthatatlan közös szuverenitás, ahol minden égi állam saját érdekei szerint használhatná az adott égi testet másoktól függetlenül. Ez azonban anarchikus állapotokat idézne elő, ahol végül a legerősebb kerülne fölénybe. 4. És végül egy erkölcsi entitás? Ez tűnik a legéletképesebb megoldásnak. Olyan megállapodást kellene kötni, amely lehetővé teszi egy vagy több égi faj békés integrációját, oly módon, hogy földi kultúránk érintetlen marad, és jelenlétüket nem tárják fel a nyilvánosság előtt. Valójában azon nem gondoljuk, hogy idáig kellene elmenni. Elégséges lenne, ha a földön kívüli népeket nemzetköziesítenénk, és egy nemzetközi szerződés révén megakadályoznánk minden kizsákmányolást, amely az ENSZ tagállamait érintené. A földi államok általi területfoglalás, amely a nemzetközi jog számára mára elveszítette a jelentőségét, mivel már nem léteznek senki földjének res nullius minősülő területek, ismét fontossá válik a kozmikus nemzetközi jog keretein belül. A területfoglalás, occupatio, nem tudom itt most mire gondol, jogilag azt jelenti, hogy egy állam birtokba vesz egy olyan területet, addig senkihez sem tartozott. Res nullius. A 19. századig a foglalás volt a szuverenitás megszerzésének szokásos eszköze, különösen akkor, amikor a földrajzi felfedezések során olyan új területeket fedeztek fel, amelyek vagy lakatlanok voltak, vagy nagyon kezdetleges civilizációval rendelkeztek. Az államok imperialista terjeszkedése azzal ért véget, hogy a Földön elfoglalható területek elfogytak. Ma már ilyen lehetőség csak a bolygóközi térben létezik, ahol azonban az égi államok vagy civilizációk új jogi problémákat vetnek fel. A res nullius olyan dolog, ami senkihez sem tartozik, például a hold. A nemzetközi jogban egy égitest, amely nem áll egyetlen állam fennhatósága alatt sem res nulliusnak minősül. Ha azonban bebizonyosodna, hogy a naprendszeren belül egy égitestet, például a holdat egy másik égi faj már elfoglalta, vagy jelenleg is lakja, akkor egyetlen földi állam sem formálhatna többé igényt arra, hogy az a terület res nullius, vagyis senki földje lenne, még akkor sem, ha később úgy döntenének, hogy felfedezőket küldjenek oda, és birtokba akarják venni. Ebben az esetben az égitest res communisként létezne, azaz közös tulajdonként, amely fölött minden égi civilizációnak és elvben minden államnak egyenlő joga van rendelkezni. És most térjünk rá az utolsó kérdésre. Vajon az égi űrhajók jelenléte a légkörünkben közvetlen következménye-e az atombomba kísérleteinknek? Az a tény, hogy azonosíthatatlan repülőeszközök jelen vannak légkörünkben, és valószínűleg a Föld körül keringő pályákon is tartózkodnak, már katonai köreink által elfogadott valóság. Amikor felmerül a kérdés, hogy az Egyesült Államok továbbfejleszti-e például a hidrogénbombák fegyver arzenáját, vagy megállapodásra jut a leszerelésről, és betiltja azokat a fegyvereket, amelyek már túlzottan pusztítóak a vegyi hadviselés kivételével, ahol valamilyen megmagyarázhatatlan csoda folytán sikerült megállapodásra jutni, a filozófusok panaszai, a politikusok erőfeszítései és diplomaták konferenciái mind kudarcot vallottak, és semmit sem értek el. Az atombomba és az űreszközök együttes alkalmazása olyan fenyegetést jelent, amely elkerülhetetlenné teszi a megállapodás keresését ezen a területen. Az azonosíthatatlan repülő objektumok megjelenése, amelyek eredetéről a vélemények élesen megoszlanak, Európa és az Egyesült Államok egén olyan kitörölhetetlen félelmet és bizonytalanságot eredményezett, amely a nagyhatalmakat megoldás keresésére kényszeríti. A katonai stratégiák szerint az űreszközök nukleáris robbanófejekkel történő alkalmazása a háború végső eszköze lehet, még az információ szerzésre és célpontok kijelölésére használt műholdak letelepítése is a küszöbön áll. Az űreszközök és műholdak katonai jelentősége vitathatatlan, hiszen a háborút a vízszintes síkból a függőleges dimenzióba emelik teljes értelmében. A támadás többé nem kizárólag egy adott irányból vagy egy konkrét ország felől érkezik, hanem a magasból, az égből, és gyakorlatilag lehetetlenné válik meghatározni, hogy ki az agresszor, hogyan lehet elfogni a támadást, vagy miként lehet azonnali megtorlást végrehajtani. Ezeket a problémákat tovább súlyosbítja az azonosítás kérdése. Hogyan tudja egy légtér ellenőrző radar üzemeltető azonosítani, vagy pontosabban besorolni a célpontját. Jelenleg megnyugtató, hogy az atombombák lassú mozgású bombázók általi célba juttatása még érzékelhető a hosszú távolságú korai figyelmeztető radarok számára. De mi lesz mondjuk 10 év múlva, amikor a műholdak és rakéták már megbízható szerepet töltenek be az űrben? Figyelembe kell vennünk az ismeretlen eredetű űreszközök által jelentett potenciális fenyegetést. Nem hagyhatjuk figyelmen kívül azt a lehetőséget sem, hogy ezeket az űreszközöket tévedésből interkontinentális rakétának véljük, különösen a visszatérő repülési szakaszban, ami véletlenszerű, súlyos következményekkel járó katonai reakciót válthat ki. Végül azt is mérlegelnünk kell, hogy az utóbbi időben végzett légköri atomkísérleteink esetleg kiválthatták más civilizációk figyelmét. Talán kíváncsiság vagy aggodalom vezette őket e tevékenység megfigyelésére, és joggal, hiszen az oroszok is minden erővel megpróbálnák megfigyelni és rögzíteni az ilyen teszteket. Összegzésként. A rendelkezésre bocsájtott adatok alapján a szakmai véleményünk az, hogy a jelenlegi helyzet rendkívül veszélyes és nyilvánvalóan sürgős intézkedések szükségesek a probléma kezelésére. Tisztelettel dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer, a Fejlett Tanulmányok Intézetének igazgatója, Princeton, New Jersey, és Albert Einstein professzor, Princeton, New Jersey.
Why nobody talks about Corso and they're talking about a TikTok?
I do. I have 3 documentaries. In 2 of them, I did talk about Philip Corso. In fact, I've done additional research on how much money is actually coming in every year from just 5 of the technologies that he was mainly talking about, which was the first one, the integrated circuit, laser, night vision, fiber optics, and the 5th one was now Kevlar, I think.
Night screening. It was because when I Corso, he told me, I asked him about the Santilli footage of the autopsy, and he said, "Oh, I had that." He said, if you see the Santilli footage, they peel off. The gray has this big black, it's not an eye. It's sunglasses. Like they peel off this layer. It's light collecting layer. It's a light collecting layer. So, I asked him about that. And he said, we use those. And we're talking 1961, okay? 1961. So when people say we have, where were you in 1961? Most of people aren't even born yet. And he's talking to Robert Kennedy because he's part of the intelligence community. So I'm going, oh, you told Robert Kennedy all this. So of course, Jack Kennedy, the president, knows. So of course, then we have to look at why can't it come out, because you're making money. You're making money off of it. But Colonel Corso in his speech said, yeah, we made money, but then we gave it to commercials so everybody could use it. But he also said that all of this stuff was made for war.
Yes.
Everything. All the technology is made for war, which is crazy because it's self-defeating. You spoke to Robert Hastings. Why would we want to kill ourselves?
Yeah. Yes. I know Philip Corso, he was saying that, yes, we give you the patents, but with one condition. You need to feed back the technology to military purposes. So that was always the priority, I guess, is just to use the technology for war, basically. And Yes, later to make money as well. Yeah, give it to the Japanese, give it to everyone, fiber optics and all that. But still, yeah, it's just so much money. But I've calculated just for the last 5 years for each of these technology, we're talking about here billions of dollars yearly income. So it's just huge amount. I know the fiber optics, they're super expensive because I was working with them when I was a network engineer and I had to buy them. So they're very expensive. All right, Paola, thank you very much. Yes, so yeah, we discussed a lot of things already that I wanted to ask you. Perhaps can you talk about your relationship or work relationship with the J.L.N. Hynek, Dr. J.L.N. Hynek? Because you were working with him for several years.
Days, Alan Hynek and I didn't want to see what was inside the craft. I mean, he basically just wanted, we were putting pins in maps, you know, there's a sighting here, there's a sighting there, it landed. Nobody asked about what was inside or who was inside. And Alan Hynek began to change his mind with the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, I think it was 1964, when this man that's credible, a policeman, sees these beings.
Socorro, New Mexico is the kind of small town people are usually traveling through on their way to someplace else. Visitors rarely slow down long enough to learn that this place has a mysterious past, and that one retired Socorro police officer is still haunted by the unearthly encounter that took place here 32 years ago. Lonnie Zamora remembers April 24th, 1964. He was a rookie on the force, returning to the station after an uneventful day. Then, a speeding vehicle passed Zamora's patrol car, and he set off in pursuit.
When we got to this hill, I saw a lot of dust, and I let the speeder go, and I turned to investigate. I could see a white object sitting between those two bushes over there, and I had to come real slow because this was a messed up road, had big rocks on it and everything. I thought it was the kids from high school. They were racing up here, and maybe one of the teenagers had turned over.
When the speeding object came to a stop, Zamora claims that he saw two figures in white coveralls emerge from a strange white UFO. He moved in slowly.
I came up here on this road till I could find a flat spot where I could park my car. I got out of the car and glanced down to the arroyo there, and I saw this white-looking object. It was sort of a big egg shape, bigger than a car. Those are the exact bushes that were there, and the craft was sitting right in between them two. So I started down to see what it was, and then I heard this big boom in the bottom, and the fire came off the bottom. So I started running behind my police car to take cover. I could feel the heat off that because it was windy like now. And then it gradually pulled up about 20, 30 feet and stayed there for a while and then just took off.
His radio was dead. Zamora could only watch in awe as the object disappeared over the horizon. As soon as it was gone, the police radio crackled to life and Zamora called for backup. A New Mexico State Police unit quickly arrived.
We came down here and we saw this big rock right down here. It was still on fire. And then we saw the imprints of the legs of the craft, and it was 4 of them. And then we saw this footprints around here.
By nightfall, the FBI had arrived on scene and began gathering evidence.
They went down there and measured the footprints and everything. And we stayed out here till about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, still wondering what it was. But they didn't say what it was or not. About 9 o'clock, they said we went down to the courthouse, and we talked about it until about midnight.
Instantly, Socorro was the center of an unprecedented media frenzy.
This is one of the few sightings that got national attention immediately. Lonnie Zamora's story is on the national news. It's in all the newspapers. Everybody's talking about it.
Kevin Randall is an internationally renowned UFO investigator. He feels the Socorro events stand alone because of the amount of physical evidence collected at the scene.
Landing gear marks were found. The bush was burned by the UFO engine. There were occupants, creatures from the craft sighted by Lonnie Zamora.
And the event brought the greatest UFO researcher of the day to Socorro.
J. Allen Hynek, the Air Force consultant, came to Socorro. He looked at it, talked to Zamora, talked to Zamora's superiors, talked to people who saw the landing traces, took photographs. So there's physical evidence remaining behind. It's one of the few times they said there could be a flying saucer.
I had conversations with Dr. Hynek about the Socorro case, and his comments to me led me to believe that he felt that this was one of those cases where the government was unwilling to permit him to say what he would like to say about it, and that dismayed him a great deal.
According to Timmerman, a longtime associate of J. Allen Hynek, the Socorro event was one of the defining moments in Hynek's career.
He felt that this was one of the most important cases he'd come across. And I think that maybe his attitude toward it was developed as a result of his feel about the Lonnie Zamora, the primary witness.
Lonnie Zamora is very credible. He's a police officer. He has nothing to gain by telling this story. He is stuck with this story from the very beginning. This is what he saw. There's no question that Lonnie Zamora saw something unusual on the ground.
According to the Air Force and government, they say they don't know what it was, and they never told me not to say or say about it, talk about it, but they say that they don't know what it was.
In fact, it took 21 years for the Air Force to finally offer an explanation for the Socorro UFO landing. They offered logs from the White Sands Missile Base, charting government testing of the newly developed lunar landing module. But the logs indicate that tests ended more than 5 hours before Zamora's sighting.
The Air Force explanation simply doesn't work because they have no documentation to place the lunar lander in that portion of New Mexico at that time. It does not match Zamora's description.
I think if Dr. Hynek were here today and saw this new documentation available, the report that the Air Force says it was a lunar lander, if anything, that landed near Socorro, I think he'd say bourgeois. He'd say that this is the government trying to do its fancy little dance and saying things that will satisfy the media, who will satisfy the country and the world, that there's no reality to the UFO phenomenon, whereas there is.
And according to JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, the lunar lander alluded to in the government data did not fly. It was dropped from a tower and had no system of independent propulsion as reported by Zamora. Randall believes that this is proof the Socorro UFO was not a lunar lander.
The Air Force completed their UFO investigation, said they had nothing more to say on it, and yet now they're coming out this year providing us with new explanations for old sightings. I have no idea why they're doing it, but I find it highly significant.
Randall believes it is Socorro's proximity to several highly sensitive military bases that have prompted a continuing disinformation campaign.
It is between the Los Alamos National Laboratory, the White Sands Missile Range. The Very Large Array radio telescope is 50 or 60 miles to the west. Socorro's right in the middle of this. If you've got a race of intelligent beings wanting to see what we're doing, this makes a perfect place for them to come to observe our steps into space and what our science is doing.
According to Timmerman, the Socorro event convinced Dr. Hynek that the truth about UFOs was being manipulated by the Air Force. After Socorro, Hynek left his post. The government lost one of its most prestigious spokespersons and gained its most ardent critic.
Dr. Hynek saw this, and it was very obvious to him that what Lonnie Zamora was saying in the depths of his honesty was not what the military was saying in their attempt to explain it.
The incident was very interesting, to say the least. It seems to differ from practically all the earlier cases we investigated from one standpoint. The vehicle had left pod marks. There was an insignia observed by Lonnie Zamora on the side of the craft. The insignia was unidentifiable, not American nor Russian. And last of all, the observation of these two people in some sort of suit.
I was there at Blue Book, and I know the job they had. They were told not to excite the public. Don't rock the boat. And I saw it in my own eyes happen that whenever a case happened that they could explain, which is quite a few, they made point of that and let that out to the media. Things that the cases that were very difficult to explain, they would jump handsprings to keep the media away from them. For they had a job to do, to, whether rightfully or wrongly, to keep the public from getting excited.
So, you know, it took them a long time. It took me a long time. It took me until I went to Latin America and realized that they were seeing, after meditation, 200 people with Sixto Paz in the
I will talk to him tomorrow. 6
Are you talking to him tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, well, Sixto Paz Wells, but see, I had to cover everything. It isn't American, it's everywhere. Sixto Paz Wells and Charlie, and I interviewed Charlie. It's on my YouTube. People go on my YouTube.
We are very honored today to interview Sixto Paz Wells from Peru. He was one of the original contactees in the 1970s that met with human-type aliens. And his contact, Oxal from the moon Ganymede, is a very interesting story, especially where this contact led to his group, the Rama group, of a group of people that made contact with these human-type beings that would come off the ship. And the preparation that these people do to have this contact, I think, is very, very important. So let's talk to Sixto Paz about his contact, about his family, because his father was very interested in Project Blue Book, was interested in UFOs before Sixto was. At the age of 18, Sixto became very, very important in this field. And now he's speaking to us from Los Angeles, California. The visitations around the world are from different races of visitors. And in your case, you saw all types of beings, including the human-type aliens. And you were telling me before why you think the alien gray is so prevalent.
Bueno, primeramente, sí son diferentes razas de extraterrestres las que están llegando a la Tierra, con diferentes intenciones. No todos vienen con buenas intenciones. Hay de todo en el universo, como hay de todo en la Tierra. Y mayormente para mí, hay toda una política de encubrimiento de información o de intoxicación informativa, de meterle miedo a la gente, de alejar a la gente de la investigación seria por el miedo, dando la impresión de que hay una raza extraterrestre conspirando contra la humanidad, haciendo pactos secretos con los gobiernos, secuestrando y manipulando gente. Yo no dudo de que algunos casos sean reales, pero no en la medida o en la proporción que se dice. O sea, considero de que la mayoría de los seres que nos visitan son bien intencionados, son como un científico que viene a observar una cultura primitiva y ver qué puede aprender de ella y qué puede aportarle a ella.
Are they contacting everybody on the planet? Because the planet is in crisis. Or are they contacting certain people on the planet?
Parte de la crisis del planeta es que hay un grupo de extraterrestres que fueron deportados a la Tierra hace miles de años atrás, murieron y quedaron atrapados en otra dimensión, y ellos ejercen un control, un dominio psíquico sobre la humanidad, llevando a una parte de la humanidad hacia la autodestrucción.
So there's a group that is, I don't want to call them evil, but not kind, who wants to lead humanity to autodestruction.
Sí, porque si destruían el planeta y acababan con el proceso de la humanidad, ellos como que volvían a su realidad.
Okay, so they have an agenda that is negative.
Sí, entonces ellos querían acabar con nosotros porque consideramos que éramos un peligro al orden cósmico.
Yeah. His brother Charlie, I went to Canada, drove 2,000 miles, drove in a car to interview Charlie. So I realized that in 1970, with automatic writing, because the extraterrestrials told them what time and what day, but they had to meditate and fast. So with Sixto Paz, that group in the Chilca Desert, and I went to the Chilca Desert. I went there.
I know.
I would wait, and then the craft would land. A Zendra would come up, which is like a mist around it, because then the beings who were people, come off, and you can be in the same atmosphere with them. You can ask them about the Zendra. And the thing is this, that I was there, I talked to the people, and I realized that where it happened with Adamski and Menger and Van Tassel in the 1950s in Southern California.
I analyzed the film frame by frame. There were 182 frames. We made enlargements of the frames. We looked for such things as double exposure, all the telltale things that you find when there's trick photography. We found out all we could about the circumstances under which the pictures were made, the distance from the camera to the object, the size of the size of the image. We didn't know the size of the object, but we derived the size of the object from a knowledge of the size of the image, the focal length of the camera, and the distance at which it was photographed. I could tell by the branch of the tree where the object hovered just where it was photographed. I went to Madeline's house. I paced off the distance. I knew exactly what the parameters were. I derived a value of 27 feet for the size of the object. I remember just how well this formula worked out. It's a triangular formula. The focal length of the camera was 9 millimeters. The distance was 90 feet. The size of the image was 2.7 millimeters. Therefore, the size of the object had to be 27 feet. You'll find this in Timothy Good's book. There were other factors. We brought them all to bear. There were instruments we used, which we had available in the laboratories at Eastman Kodak Company. These included densitometers, photometers, projection devices of all sorts, electronic devices, everything that you could name that you could use, telephotometers, and so on. The electron microscope, I believe, was used by a man at Kodak Park. Everything pointed to the conclusion that the objects in the film were true objects, unknown objects, not model objects, and that it was taken by Madeline exactly as she told us it was. People with experience, to call upon the experience of those who had concentrated on the photographic film and reproducing pictures, meant more than anything else. It is not just my opinion, it's the opinion of all of the experts.
One of these experts was Colonel Coleman von Kivitsky, founder of the Audiovisual Division of the Royal Hungarian General Staff, who worked as a film expert for the United Nations during the 1960s.
Medellin Radeffer short 8mm sequence filmed on a flying object in front of her house above the trees are genuine. I was personally on the location and I verified the distance where the UFOs were flying and all the necessary environmental circumstances which excluded any kind of faking this movie film sequence.
We met him in March of 1964. I arranged a lecture at the Civic Center about 10 miles away at Rockville. And we became friends. I knew him only 1 year and 1 month, the last year of his life. And he visited from California here about 5 times in that last year of his life, just intermittent. He didn't stay at this house all that time. But on February 26th, approximately 8 o'clock in the morning, a space friend, contact of Mr. Adamski, came to this house. I was still asleep, but when I got up, Mr. Adamski told me that he had been told that we should get cameras ready for filming later in the day. And of course, I had never seen one so close before, or I didn't expect that they were going to come hovering that close in my yard. I would have rented a Polaroid or prepared with more cameras, but Mr. Adamski actually helped me put film in the little 8mm Bell and Howell movie camera. And he had film in his Kodak camera too. And we waited. Now, they did not tell him what time they were coming, but this was earlier in the morning, but this was middle of the afternoon, about 3:30, when we noticed them at a distance. And we were at the dining room window looking out, and they came in closer. And by the way, 3 more spacemen came and knocked at the door just before the incident. And Mr. Adamski went, and they told him they said, get your cameras ready, they're coming. Now that is how close he was associated with those people from other planets. And it's difficult to believe, but they looked just like American. One of them had brown hair, and one had dark hair, and one had slightly gray hair. And they parked in a car, I believe it was an Oldsmobile, but I don't know the year, down here at the street when they came, and then the spaceship came. And we went outside, but I had a broken leg. I had fallen the month before in my living room, and I was in a walking cast. And but I was able to walk around, but with a little limping difficulties, but I did get around. And but when we came out on the porch up here and started to film, he told me to film, and he was going to film. I said, George, I can't do this. I'm too wobbly. And I had not had the camera but 2 months. My husband had given it to me for Christmas just 2 months before. So I handed him, he said, okay, I'll do it. So I gave him my camera, and he laid his down, and we filmed it he filmed it then. I started, but I wasn't sure of myself, and I didn't want to miss it. So I gave the camera to him, and he finished filming it. But I was, clumping around in the background and able to walk, of course, without too much difficulty with this cast on. But they only stayed about approximately 10 minutes. They did not land. They did not get out of the spacecraft, but there were glimpses of people through the round windows. And they maneuvered, they came in here. It was a low humming and a low swishing sound. And they came in, when they got close here, they came in very slowly. And it was round, and there were 3 of these, well, about this size, I guess, these landing gears underneath, and they were going like this, retracting in and out. And they told George later it was for stabilization. If they'd put all of them out, they would have had to land. And they kept one retracted all the time, and the other 2 were going in and out. But anyway, low swishing, low humming sound. And it wasn't real loud, but there was definitely a motor sound accompanied with it. And it was a brilliant royal, between a royal and a purple and blue in color. It was a beautiful blue, and deeper blue than this. And it was round, and as it moved, it looked crooked, and on the film it shows this slight distortion, and it looked, lopsided and so on. But they were moving and putting on this performance for Mr. Adamski to back up, his efforts to get the world leaders to tell the truth about the visitors from other planets. They were demonstrating, they wanted him to capture this on film, their abilities to do certain maneuvers. And they wanted him to have this proof to show the people of the world, because our world governments have better film, and they haven't shared any of them with us. And they wanted Mr. Adamski to have this piece of film to show, to the audiences when he was speaking, how they do these certain maneuvers. They did this on purpose.
Bob Oechsler, a robotics engineer and former mission specialist of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, is also convinced of the Roddifer film's authenticity. He believes the flight pattern indicates an energy field which enables the disk to maneuver independently of terrestrial gravitation.
The individual images as they came up clearly showed something that you could not see with the naked eye in looking at the film or even looking at the individual prints under close scrutiny, and that there was a haze, if you will, a very tight haze, almost like a fuzzy outline around the craft itself on the image. Now, this, of course, compared to the trees that are visible in the film, which were crystal clear and very well in focus. In other words, you have a very sharp contrast. You immediately might be concerned about the possibility of capabilities of double exposure, which is, of course, very difficult to do with film. However, in this particular case, we found it very, very intriguing that the craft itself had very, very sharp contrasting edges along where the porthole areas are and around the top of the cab. But especially in the bottom portion of the craft, we began to see that there was light emitting from the craft, but this was not a light such as a glow, like a reflection you'd get if somebody was projecting a light onto an object. This was rather interesting because it tended to suggest that there was some form of energy associated with the vehicle itself that was actually causing this sort of a red glow in the undercarriage area. But that, along with the glow that we were getting, the sort of a haze, a very, very distinct fine haze around and very, very close to the craft itself through the images, suggested that there was an actual radiation effect. Almost, I guess you could liken it to a mirage effect. People are fairly familiar with when you ride down the highway during the summer and you look across and you can see the heat rising, and it tends to distort images that are behind the mirage. Well, this is very similar to the effect that we saw on this object, suggesting several things. One, that you were actually looking at a three-dimensional object as something that was superimposed onto the film. That, again, suggested credibility with regard to the film. And secondly, it suggested that there was technology associated with it. This was not just, you know, a trash can lid or something that was just casually thrown up in the air while filming was going on. So began to become much more encouraged with what I was seeing. The more I began to look into the individual segments, the film itself, the motion, we began to see things that you might liken to a distortion. In other words, the craft itself physically changed shape. Now, not the whole craft, but it seemed that portions of the craft changed shape. Now, this was a product either of what you might call an optical illusion as a result of the technology associated with the craft, the method that it used to maintain its levitated state to violate gravity, or it was a mechanical apparatus associated with the craft itself. We noticed that the ball structure in the bottom of the craft, in concert with the receding of these individual structures, that the one portion of the craft had an indentation that would go in every time this one ball would go up, and then it would come back out into a round disc, or circular area. So I think that these features all collectively, more than anything else, and even more than the testimony of Madeline Roddifer herself and the historical testimony of George Adamski prior to his death regarding this particular event, all tend to suggest that we are probably dealing with an authentic case. And I think it's time that perhaps some researchers of historical value would probably want to go back and take a much closer look at the George Adamski case in its entirety.
These are actually proof prints from the original film that Madeline Roddifer and George Adamski filmed back in the 60s. Now, a very high contrast on the film. It was very difficult to see any detail in the object. As you can see on the film, it looks like black shadows, which led people to speculate that probably this was just a hoax, maybe a cardboard cutout, maybe something on a piece of string. The bright light bleaching any signs of string or wires out of the shot. But Bill Sherwood, very clever man, worked for Kodak, light blasted some of the frames and came up with images like this. Now, something that's been scoffed for 30 odd years, all of a sudden, and let's just say that Bill Sherwood did this some 30 years ago, but it's only now that the technology has been available we can actually see these are the same frames. This is the same footage that we're looking at here. This is a genuine frame from that footage. Look at the detail. It's a three-dimensional object. It's no drawing and it's no painting. It's a solid object of 3 dimensions.
We have with us today a man who perhaps has been more instrumental because he has brought tangible evidence, the nature of photographs and other things, to the people of the world. He is a man who I think very highly of, a man who I have worked with and who I respect very much. I would like at this time to introduce my very good friend and colleague, co-author of Flying Saucers Have Landed, Mr. George Adams.
Thank you very much, George. We're all joy. And I'm mighty glad to be here at this time. Since last year, I disappointed most of you people on account of being in New York City at the time. But before going on with what I'm about to say, I want to also mention something here that should have been mentioned long before this. And that is that this is the birthday of George Van Tassel.
We're riding on an electrostatic magnetic ship right now on the Earth, doing 66,000 miles an hour right now in an orbit around the sun, and we're all astronauts in that respect.
Have you ever gone up close enough to touch one, to see what was inside?
Bill, in August the 24th of 1953, I went aboard one for about 20 minutes.
What was it like? What happened?
Well, the interior walls were what looked like mother-of-pearl plastic, like we put on toilet seats and for decoration. The light inside seemed to come from everywhere. The instrument panel wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before, and all of my years since 1927 in the air game. And they had a compartment in the wall which both cleans and deodorizes their clothes by some light process, which required no water, soap, or detergents, or a washing machine.
Giant rock, for the last 10 years, has been the Plymouth Rock of the saucer age. Saucer conventions were meeting here as far back as the pre-astronaut era of black and white television.
I was inspired by a trip to New York State in the Catskills. I was on my way up there under some kind of control. It seemed almost like the wheel was moving by itself. I know it sounds strange, but it's true. And I reached an old cabin in the woods, and inside there were what I considered to be aliens. They were not from this world, as far as I could see. They're very angelic people, and they had all kinds of instruments in the cabin, all types of electronic, like what we'd call pianos and organs. And on the wall, they had a 1-inch thick 2x2 television screen, and they could move it anywhere they wanted to. I think we're getting that nowadays. We're getting into that now, 35, 40 years later. But I went in there and they showed me the instruments, the musical instruments, and I expressed the wish that I wished I could play the piano. And they said, well, maybe we can help you. I don't know what they did, but I could sit down after that visit to the cabin, after meeting these wonderful people, and I could play anything by ear. I think it all began when I was very young, approximately 10 years old, in the early 30s, when I went up into the woods, as I often did, and saw a beautiful lady on a rock with a stream going by. And I was really surprised, because first I thought it was one of the farm people, because there were farms nearby. But this woman wasn't dressed in a farm outfit. She was dressed in beautiful, flowing gown. And she had long blonde hair and gold-colored eyes. And she seemed to be waiting for me. as though she knew I'd be there. And when she spoke in perfect English and a beautiful voice. And I was only 10 years old, but I want to tell you, this was quite an experience. She was like an angel, like talking to an angel. And she seemed to know all about me. And she mentioned some things that would happen in the near future. She departed almost like a vision, just disappeared. And I went back home. I didn't talk about it for weeks. Not even to my brother, who often went up in the woods with me. We saw discs in the sky, my brother and I, during that period, that same period. And as time went on, some of the things that she had predicted were coming true. They continued from the girl on the rock right on up to the very significant ones in 1956, when the craft came in, these huge 40 to 50 foot craft, and they carried these beautiful angelic aliens. And of course, at first I wasn't ready for any of this. No cameras, no recording equipment, no witnesses. But after that, I prepared myself with cameras, witnesses. I had witnesses. I was taking a movie on one incident in 1956 in Highbridge, New Jersey, where a craft was coming in. It's in my new book, the Highbridge incident. The pictures are in there. And the craft is coming in, and I'm taking a colored movie, 8mm movie of this. I have several witnesses from the local area, and also a federal agent from the Bureau in Newark, New Jersey was standing right next to me. I was filming a craft coming in. The door opens when it landed, and two men got out. One went to the left, one went to the right, and then a beautiful lady got out. But she had a type of spacesuit on. And she walked toward me, and when she got about 25 or 30 feet from me, she didn't say a word. And she touched something shiny on her belt. And that shiny thing got bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally enveloped her whole body to where I could see her body as a light form. And then it disappeared. And I was really surprised. I yelled back at the craft. I said, "Where did she go? Where is she?" And they yelled back in perfect Oxford English, "She's here with us in the ship." So evidently their technology has taken them into some type of teleportation, which we haven't approached that yet. Our scientists have not approached that yet, that I know of. And so evidently they have mastered time, motion, and energy in some way. Shortly after that, the two men went in the craft, the door closed, and it silently rose and left the area. I only have parts of it and slides I made from the original. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the bureau out of Newark, New Jersey, took the original film. As you know, there is a definite government cover-up for three reasons: political, religious, and scientific, and for national security.
They stopped going there, the human-type aliens, and went to South America. And they went to South America in the Chilca Desert and in the Atacama Desert in Chile. And I was in the Atacama Desert in Chile. So my job had to be, ask these people, what did you see? What did they want? How did they look? And they were very, in Sisto's case, Axel, I think, had dark hair. And they are not Nordic, reptilian, and grays. It's ridiculous, because you have to look at each cosmic culture, each alien group as different. In Brazil, it was a little creature,
yes,
Virginia, that had the three little, and he had reddish skin and he looked like the devil to the girls.
Yes.
So you say the extraterrestrials want us. Which ones? Which ones? Because The thing is that when I worked with Clifford Stone in crash retrieval, and I was close to Clifford Stone, as I was close to Robert Dean and Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, and Colonel Corso and Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister.
My name, as I said, was Paul Hellyer. I'm a former Minister of National Defense for Canada. I served in 3 governments during a total of 23 and a half years as a Member of Parliament. Although as Minister of National Defense, I had sighting reports of UFOs. I was too busy to be concerned about them at the time because I was trying to unify the Army, Navy, and Air Force into a single Canadian Defence Force. And that itself was a kind of battle to the finish. So this was not high on my agenda. But about 10 years ago, I started getting interested due to a young man from Ottawa sending me material on the subject. I told him I was too busy to read it, but he had confidence that someday I would. He sent me a copy of Colonel Corso's book, The Day After Roswell. It took me a while to get around to reading it, but I took it for my summer reading in 2005 and was really impressed with what was contained in it. And what I thought to myself is there are huge issues here, huge issues. And the American people and the people of the world have a right to know what's going on because they're part of it. It's not just an isolated thing. And so after confirming the contents of the book with a retired United States Air Force general, I accepted the invitation of Victor Vigiani, who's over here somewhere, and his cohort Mike Bird to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto. And I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. That gave me the dubious distinction of being the first person of cabinet rank in the G8 group of countries to say so unequivocally. An investigation was launched into this whole subject, and a document was prepared which concluded that at least 4 species had been visiting Earth for thousands of years. And this is my own view at this stage as well. I named 5 different species here. I'm aware of more now. As a matter of fact, I saw a document just a few days ago that mentioned 20. And I think you, Mr. Chairman, were interested in some of the places they might come from. And I have in here Zeta reticuli, R-E-T-I-C-U-L-I, reticuli, the Pleiades, Orion, Andromeda, and the Altair star systems. So I don't think we can any more refer to them as they, because they're not an amorphous mass. They are different species and consequently may have different agendas. I don't think we can say that they all have the same agenda any more than we could say that the United States, China, and Russia had the same agenda. Our real interests may be very similar, but as of now, our perceived interests are still quite far apart. There are live ETs on Earth at this present time, and at least 2 of them probably working with the United States government. The other species that I learned about not too long ago was called the tall whites. And this is when Paola Harris broke the story just a few years ago. And through her good offices, I had the chance to talk for about 3 hours with former Airman Charles Hall and listen to this absolutely fascinating story of how he was working with, first of all, he was scared out of his skin, but after that, when he got to know them, how he was working with, and finally they became to trust each other and have a good working relationship with the tall whites at the gunnery range at Indian Springs in Nevada. And these tall whites were living on United States Air Force property and working in cooperation with the United States Air Force and sharing technology with them. He wrote a book, incidentally, called Millennial Hospitality. There are 4 different versions, but Paula says that Millennial Hospitality number 2 is the best. I think that's the one I read, and it's a very interesting read if you want to sort of get inside the problem of what it's like to bump into these people floating across the terrain in the desert. Well, enough on that for now. My interest is in full disclosure. And my only caveat is I think probably I would say 95 to 98% full disclosure. I know of 1 or 2 things that I'm not sure should be in the public domain, at least yet. They will be someday, I'm sure, but not maybe immediately. But just as children survive the idea of the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus when they become adult, I think that tax-paying citizens are quite capable of accepting the new and broader reality that we live in a cosmos teeming with life of various sorts. The fact that some other civilizations are more advanced than we are may be humbling, but that could be a necessary step in our survival. The world is an unholy mess. We have at best until the end of this decade. In my book, I said we have 10 years to stop global warming if we don't want it to be beyond the point of no return. 2 years has gone past since it was written, so I say we have until the end of the decade to arrest global warming. Yet our leaders don't even talk about it very much except in a superficial way. They appear to be more interested in starting wars to control more oil and, in effect, prolong the gravity of the threat. Of course, even if they took the problem seriously, they wouldn't have the finances to finance the transition from oil to the clean economy, to clean energy, because we have an infinitely silly banking and financial system in the Western world.
And all of these people, I got information, and Clifford told me that he did 12 crashed retrievals where some of them were alive and some of these beings were dead. And I said, why did you say there were 57 different ones? And he said he had a first aid manual. First aid. That means if they were sick or they were, lying on the ground, they could look at the manual, look at the picture. There wasn't a picture, there were just drawings, and know how to help them. At the very end of the 12 that he did, and the last one was, he said, in America, in Georgia, he did 3 in Vietnam. Vietnam is very important in ufology. Vietnam, there were extraterrestrials watching everything, and they have gun camera footage, military, of this. They're not on vacation in Vietnam. And so when Clifford Stone said, well, we had this book with 57 different drawings, I'm going, oh, well, which extraterrestrials are we talking about now? I mean, it gets very complicated.
My question is to Clifford Stone. You said that you had seen aliens on a craft that had crashed. I wondered if you could describe what they looked like.
I could, but it would probably take a whole lot of time. The reason I state that, when I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species. You have individuals that look very much like you and myself that could walk among us and you wouldn't even notice the difference, except for some of the things that they might be able to go ahead, even in a dark room, and touch an object and go ahead and identify what color that object might be. They would have a heightened sense of smell, sight, hearing. The situation is that you have various types of what we normally call grays. We didn't call them grays in the military, but you had at least 3 types of the grays. You had some that were much taller than we were. The unique thing that I'd like to point out for the most part is that the entities that we did catalog were in fact humanoid. Now this created a situation where the scientific community was trying to figure out why that would be the case, because you would expect that if life evolved on other planets, that they would take on some type of other being, so to speak, not necessarily look humanoid or be bipedal such as we are. But apparently, we got quite a few of the species out there that are humanoid in appearance, and that creates a question that yet has to be answered by science.
2 documents from the CIA that go back to the time of the getting ready for the what do you call it? The Robertson panel committee.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the CIA made it clear they were not real happy with what they were saying.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
there was
Okay.
there were 2 documents, which I'm going to release that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And this right here is December 4th, 1952. This is a document where they are talking about hitting up on approaching the National Security having the Intelligence Advisory Committee to approach the National Security Council to do a National Security Council intelligence directive. And they said, oh, no, let's wait until we hear what the doctors have, or the scientists have to say. And this one is saying the same thing. And actually, this is a better copy than that one.
Okay, so I'll take mine.
And this right here is where they had the Scientific Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started to put it out before anyone could really do anything.
Okay.
And telling them that in light of this conclusion, the panel recommends that the national security agencies take immediate steps to strip unidentified flying objects of the special status they have been given and the aurora of mystery that they have unfortunately acquired. Well, the whole situation is, if you do a national security intelligence directive, guess what? All of the intelligence activities are now aware of UFOs, and they are seeking that information. And you know what? That little nucleus that controls it all, they no longer control it all. You have a whole gauntlet of people and agencies that now know, and eventually someone's going to talk.
Okay.
The best kept secrets are those that are maintained by, that are known but by a few.
Okay.
And this right here is a 1958 document where, remember, peaceable activities for the exploration of space.
Okay.
And, you know, we hit up on that and say, yep, that's what we want to do. We really want to do this. So...
Who is it that really wants to do it?
Uh-huh.
Who said that? Who put out this document?
This is the CIA.
Okay.
But we have this right here where they're saying, you know, control outer space, and we really want to hit up on that. But this one is also, this is 1958. I got to explain this.
Mm-hmm.
Better than 1,600 documents.
Go with that.
Well, nothing like them.
Okay.
That talk about submarines.
Where is
Foreign submarines, Russian submarines.
Where are they?
They're in the CIA files.
Okay.
But you don't have to worry about those. We know what those are.
No, but I say, how can I have them?
All 1,600?
No, but something that says that.
Says what? I'm telling you that. I've been on this.
No, but something. Well, how can I have a doc?
In writing. She means
in writing. I need it in writing.
That says that they have 1,600?
Yeah. In other words, they're not on a DVD or a disc or anything.
No, yeah. I go ahead and I download something like 3,000 documents daily.
Okay, so...
And, you know, I go ahead, like on this, I just did the pro word search for submarines.
Okay.
And just a minute, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Anyhow, here we have it, briefing on submarine activity.
Okay, I do have it.
Y'all, you got this document.
No, I'm going to have it, yes. Right? That's what I need.
Mr. Dahl said that he proposed to include in the next day's intelligence briefing of the National Security Council a summary of the various reports on alien submarine activity off our coast. He asked Mr. Quarles if defense had any objection to his raising this subject as the subject at the NSA. Mr. Quarles expressed no objection. Now the situation is, out of over 1,600 documents, okay?
But that's my job, to get the real truth from the people that saw them dead and alive, that communicated with them like Clifford Stone. So when I started looking at the fact that this field is not abduction, like crazy. I mean, you don't need 40 years to collect DNA and get it off glass. So it's not even logical. It's, I think it's a way to scare people, because I have people come up to me, I've been abducted. I said, really? You know, you've been contacted. Contacted is different from abducted. Contacted means they came to speak to you. They came to talk to you. They came to give you a message so you could help humanity.
Yeah.
So when I talk to Sixto, and it's very important that you listen to him.
Dear friends, I apologize for my English. I haven't practiced. I am Sixto Paz Wells, writer and contactee with aliens from Lima, Peru. I am part, together with many people in my country and worldwide, of a unusual experience that happened 47 years ago and has allowed us to have physical contact with extraterrestrial beings. Sometimes we were inside their ships and have received from them their point of view of those questions that we all ask ourselves sometimes in life. Who are we? Where do we come from? And where are we going? According to them, we are star seeds. We were planted in this world as a sociological, anthropological, and metaphysical experiment to learn through ourselves, since that these beings have forgotten and mistakenly left aside. We come from the stars. We are stardust, and we will return to them one day. Decades ago, they warned us of a drastic climatic change and all kinds of mutations that occurred every 26,000 years on our planet as a consequence of a pulse that is emitted from the center of the galaxy and that reached our solar system, generating all kinds of change, physical, mental, and spiritual. We are precisely at this moment at the end of the cycle and at the beginning of another. This doesn't not mean the end of the world, but it doesn't mean significant change at all levels. And it is that everything changes. Nothing remains the same forever, and we must not only to change and flow with them, but we must be conscious, generators of very positive change. At this very special moment of the human history, it does not matter if the viruses that are so frightening were generated in laboratory with the obscure purpose of a trade war or to generate chaos and impose it a new world order, or if those viruses mutated as a result to the cosmic change. The important thing is to know that fear lowers our defense and makes us prone to getting sick. To live healthy in this time of crisis, we must have a healthy diet based on life and not death, and a positive and grateful attitude towards life. We must be able to love and be loved. We are not the center of creation, but we are the center of a cosmic expectation. There are many extraterrestrial civilizations visiting us, observing us. We are going to get ahead because we must believe in the good of the human being, which is always more good than bad. And remember, that contact with the universe, it begins with establishing the best contact with oneself.
And I realized that these human-type beings, after they meditate, they have to be pure, come down and say, and to Sixto and his brother, they said, come on in the spaceship. Really, it's amazing because they did this in the United States in the 1950s and 60s with Adamski and that group. But why would they leave? Well, why wouldn't you leave? All the United States wants is technology and to shoot at them. In the Battle of Los Angeles, 1952, shooting. So naturally, they're going to go, and you can tell Sixto hello from me because they have to go to a population that has heart connection, because you can't use your brain here. These extraterrestrials are so different from you. They have different technology. They have a different way of seeing things. They can go through walls. They can teleport, like the Italian Amicizia case where they're teleporting themselves.
Rispettosissimi a non forzarci e a lasciarci liberi.
So they were very respectful this time around to make sure that they left everybody free to decide if they wanted to make this shift. Allora hanno scelto le persone con cui volevano fare questo traguardo, no?
Non c'eravamo solo noi, 20 in Italia.
20, guarda, veramente 20, io pensavo fosse 10.
20.
There were 20 people. Signora, eri l'unica donna o c'erano quante donne c'erano?
Ti dico subito, guarda.
I asked how many women because I heard that it was 10 men.
Io, lei e mia mamma.
Tu mamma pure. Certo. Okay, so it was Gaspare, his wife, and his mother.
Zita. Poi.
Come si chiama?
Zita.
Oh, Zita.
Poi, Bruno
uomo,
e Samacis, e la moglie.
È la moglie.
Stava un po' si sapeva, era con noi.
Un po' in disparte la moglie.
His wife wasn't that involved. Okay.
Poi Franco Tomasini, quello giovane, dopo ti dirò
the young guy.
Ecco. Poi 3 svizzeri, un architetto, Walter Zeig, Verena e la figlia Maya.
Okay, Verena donna era.
Sì,
okay, so there was a Swiss guy, his wife and his daughter. E la
moglie. E la figlia Maya,
okay.
18 anni.
Ma loro vivevano in Svizzera quelli?
In Svizzera, ma poi sono venuti a vivere in Italia.
Ok, per questo caso?
Per questo,
sì. A pescare.
Sì, a Montesilvano.
A Montesilvano. Poi Emilio con la moglie.
Davvero? Tante donne, Emilio con la moglie pure.
Torri, poi Franco Saia, poi che è un avvocato, poi un altro di Torino, Giorgio Berardi, che era un magistrato.
Okay, there was also a judge. Giorgio Berardi was a judge. So there were 20, erano 20.
20 poi c'erano, mi dimentico qualcheduno poi.
Stefano Brescia was with
verso la fine.
Fine sarebbe
78.
1978. 1978.
È cominciata nel 56 e finita nel 78.
It started in 56 and ended in 1978. This esperimento, no?
Sì.
Ma voi come siete stati coinvolti?
Okay. Allora, ci tengo molto a precisare una cosa.
He wants to say one thing for sure.
Non siamo stati scelti perché eravamo intelligenti, colti o coraggiosi.
They weren't chosen because they were intelligent, cultured, and courageous. They weren't chosen for that reason.
Siamo stati scelti perché questa ventina, più altri nel pianeta che non conoscevamo, dovevano rappresentare la media del pianeta.
Okay, so they were the average they had chosen the average people to do the experiment with, and they were average. L'unica cosa dovete accettare, ragazzi, però, come avete accettato?
L'unica cosa
Sì.
che dovevamo avere buona
Yeah.
era un certo sistema nervoso.
You had to have a certain nervous system. E dovete essere calmi, era questo?
Un buon sistema nervoso, ecco.
Essere calmi, no?
Calmi e...
They had to have a good nervous system, in other words, that
un sistema nervoso. Apertura mentale.
You have to have an open mind.
Ecco, un open mind, yes.
Yeah,
Ecco, allora per telefono, per
radio.
Telephone. Adesso ti dico come facevano a parlare con noi.
How did they speak to you?
Allora e noi, io, mia moglie, lei, capisci, no? La prima cosa è l'autodifesa. La prima cosa è chi è questo qui?
They said, we don't know if we want to speak to these people. They were very nervous about speaking to the extraterrestrials because they said, we don't know who they are. Hello, everyone. This is a real treat because we are doing transatlantic right now. And what you're seeing on the screen, what you will be seeing on the screen is Pablo Cerate, a foremost researcher from Chile. Say hello, Pablo.
Hi everybody. Thank you. Hi.
And then I'm going to interview Octavio Ortiz with the help of his grandson, and his grandson is Sebastian, and they are in Chile. So do you want to say hola, Sebastian? Okay. And then what we're going to do is talk about the Chilean case. I mean, we're very honored that we're able to cover this because everyone that's done the Amicizia case, including Barbara Barbatelli that we just interviewed, wants to know everything about the Chilean case. What we need to understand is there are two timelines. The Italian Pescara is 1956. Chile, the Chilean case is 1985. And that is why Latin America is the best place to do research. I've been to Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, and you know, it's really where the contact is. Mm-hmm. And it took me something like it took me at least 25 years before I even accepted that concept. You know, I didn't want to touch aliens. You know, I wanted to stay with science. But this isn't about science. There is no science that can explain this. It's very difficult to explain. But it is about awakening. It's what Grant Cameron calls consciousness.
Yes.
It's about waking up the humanity, who we are. If you look at the stars, we're something bigger than people. We belong to a consciousness that never dies.
Gradually, you can see the consciousness rising, that now everybody admits there's UFOs. Everybody knows there's probably bodies and crafts, and we're starting to know all this kind of stuff. Even like near-death experiences, you may not believe in them, but now the consciousness is rising on all these different phenomena that people are realizing it may not be the physical world you think it is. It's much more magnificent a world than what you think it is. And we got to realize that this phenomena is much more powerful than what we think it is. Almost like, I think you would agree with me, that whatever this is, it teaches you that the world is not what you think it is. It is much more complex. It's much more grand. And these beings are trying to teach us something. They're trying to indirectly move us along.
And there's and the consciousness aspect, whether you're looking at, you know, the telepathy tapes or ESP or paranormal, is all part of the UFO phenomena. It's part of it. It's all of it. When I did the work with Ricardo Gonzalez, who I consider an incredible, intelligent man, I was with him in Latin America. I was with him at Monte Perdido in the French Alps. I've been with him all over the world. He has contact because they tell him what time they're coming, but they also give him messages. And the message when I was with him in the Atacama Desert was,
We are going to have problems with ecology. We're going to have problems. And of course, the United States has one storm after another and hurricanes. And they said to him, you're going to have problems with water. So this idea of climate change is real.
Yeah.
This idea that they want to help us, and they're telling us this in the Atacama Desert through Ricardo Gonzalez, is real. And the idea that this particular group, remember, if they're Apunians with Ricardo, with Apu, they're also Apunians with Charlie. So you have to look at the groups, and they're trying to tell us the future. And the hardest part, Sabi, is I can't understand time travel.
That's one of those things that I do talk about this sometimes with people that, for example, Michael P. Masters' work, but basically, once we figure out time travel, that means it's always existed. But yes, it looks like they know somehow how to tap into the future, perhaps the past, simultaneously, because they do talk to us about the future, and not always happens the same way. But yes, it seems like they do know about the future. I was gonna ask you, because yes, we talked about the planet Apu, and yeah, there are so many planets and so many races. According to your research, what do you think? How many different ET races visiting Earth, at least for the past 80 years? Like, what do you think?
I just told you that Clifford Stone had a book of 57.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's got 57 with the drawings that he's supposed to help, there's at least 57. Colonel Corso told me 52. He told me 52, but I can't guess. I mean, that's a question. I would make up something. No, I have to. Well, I have to ask the people like a Clifford Stone who did crash retrieval. I mean, he was the first one that crashes because he had telepathy, and they knew that they couldn't talk to these beings, and Clifford could, communicate. And Colonel Corso told me that in the Pentagon they had 52, but that's in the book Conversations with Colonel Corso. And Colonel Corso had come to the same conclusion you and I have, that there has to be peace, that we have to stop killing each other, that we have to watch out for the money behind it. He had the same, at 82 years old, he had the same conclusion. And he had contact. I didn't want to do that story when he saw the being at White Sands, the being that came out of the cave. And the drawing is in the book. And Colonel Corso, and the being said, shut down your radar so I can take off.
Yeah.
And Colonel Corso said, if I do that, what will you give me? And he said, a new world if you can take it.
I'm going to the gold mine. It's 110 degrees out here. At least it's cool in there. So I went in the gold mine, walked in, I sat there. And it was cool, so I dozed off. Then as I was dozing off all at once, I reached down and lifted the flap on my 45. I pulled it out, and I pulled the safety off, and I rolled over, and there was something in the corner. Something was draped around the shoulders. And I figured, what is this, a rattlesnake curled up? But if I fire this pistol in this cave, ricochets might get me, so I better not. And at that moment, I heard something. Something came in my head that said, don't. And then I got the real surprise. So when I heard don't, I figured, what is that thing there? It had a helmet on, like glass, that was transparent, a band around its head with the thing in the middle. So I answered, I said, friend or foe? What are you? And then I get an answer back which really shocked me. I asked him, friend or foe? And the answer came back, remember, this was all mental telepathy, because the aliens have no vocal cords. So the answer came back, and the answer was neither. So Now, remember, I was a soldier. I think in terms of the enemy. But this thing answered me, whatever it was, said neither. So that started me thinking, am I hallucinating here or going crazy? I'm supposed to be a pretty level-headed commander. So all at once I hear, will you give me 10 minutes radar downtime? And then I got confused. I figured, I'm the only man that can give that order. Did this thing know I was here? No one else can give that order but me. And it asked me. So, typical human being, I was thinking in my mind, if I give that order, what's in it for me? So, that's a typical human reaction. So I said, what do you offer? I didn't say what's in it for me. I said, what do you offer? Because the other was two stupid human being words. So finally I got the answer back, which I still don't know what it means. I asked Whitley Strieber, who wrote Communion, what it means. He gave me 3 different answers. This happened in 1957. The answer came back to me. What was his offer? The offer was this: a new world if you can take it. Now, and I thought, what does that mean? What is that he's offering me? So at that stage, I put my .45 back in the holster, put the safety on, and I went out to my Jeep. And I picked up the radio, and I called Captain Williams, range commander. From Captain, this is Colonel. You get green time from White Sands? He said, yes, just came through. I'm giving you an order. Keep our radars down for 10 minutes. I repeat, keep our radars down for 10 minutes, and I'm coming in. I'm on my way. So then I turned around, and I see this thing, the light was reflecting off of the water, standing at the cave entrance. And it had a tight-fitting suit on, like the thing I saw in the casket at Fort Riley, not the casket, the box. So I figured he was standing there, and I looked over, and I figured, now what? It's watching me. So I saluted. I went like that. And I took off in my Jeep. And it would take me, I'd say, from where I was in the desert, about 20 minutes to get back. And I gave him, the order was 10 minutes downtime. I had pretty powerful radars. I had radars in those days that the pencil beam would lock on 200 miles out. In fact, if you came in my area and I showed you the missile like newspaper men, I used to tell them, please take the flash bulbs out of your pocket. You can take all the pictures you want, but take the flash, because the moment I turn my radars on, they'll go off in your pocket. They're so powerful. So, range headquarters called me. It was about 15 minutes later. He said, stop at E Battery and pick up the tapes. We picked up something on the radar and locked on. It was going over 3,500 miles an hour. I remember it's 1957. There was nothing could travel that fast that we had. So, all at once I hear, I return your salute. And I figured, well, I'm military, and that's a logical thing. I'm imagining this thing. But then they picked up this thing traveling that fast, going out of the area. And then I thought, I wonder if that thing, whatever it was in that flying saucer. I didn't see it. My radars picked it up. And that was, so then I figured, I better forget this. I'm supposed to be a pretty solid type commander. And if I report this to high headquarters, who doesn't want to hear it anyway, I might get tabbed as a kook. And after all, I had orders to take over command of the 1st Missile Battalion going to Germany that had atomic warheads. And I was made air defense commander of southern Germany when I was over there. And I don't want to jeopardize that. So I didn't report it to anybody or say anything about it. Till now. And I didn't even write this in the book.
Well, when Colonel Corso met me, he asked me what that meant. And a new world. If we could transform the planet to a new world where we come together, then we will avoid death, killing, wars, and all of this politics that's out there. And if the being is saying that to him in 1957, it happened. So where were we in 19? I was in school, but 1957, this being is saying this at White Sands to Colonel Philip Corso.
Yeah.
They have been trying to help us grow up. And I look at everything and I go, we're back in the Cold War. I mean, Russia's the enemy. There's a Cold War. It's games. I think kind of ending this conversation, I would like to say it's about consciousness. It's about peace. It's about inner peace. It's about all of us coming together with our consciousness to create a new peaceful planet. Because if we don't do that, they don't want us on the moon. They don't want us on Mars. Why would you want to meet us?
Yeah.
So we repeat the history on Mars. We fight each other. We put a flag on the moon. I mean, it's insanity. So what needs to happen is kind of a coming together with consciousness and a kind of spirituality where we realize we're all the same. We're all people. We all want what's good, for us. And we represent this beautiful planet that we're not taking care of it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, consciousness is definitely, like Grant and you guys talked about yesterday, that is probably above UFOs. So, we talk about categories of, okay, UFO, USOs, we're talking about beings, but yeah, it's probably consciousness is on the top. That is most important. One quick question about spirituality, and we should, look after more of love and being together and forget about war. You hear all these people nowadays, they talk about this 26, 27, something's going to happen unless we're going to take care of the planet and stop doing all this war. What's your take on that? What do you think? Is something...
Well, I believe that the future is cast in stone. I believe there is a future. I believe that you can see it. I believe in time travel. But when you change one thing, look at it as a chain, you change, they're all a chain, they're hooked together. When you change one event, you change everything. So you have to jump to another timeline.
Yeah.
When you change an event, and people can affect that event, people can change that event. They can do it. I can give you an example. Do you want me to give you an example? Because yes, I was studying the secrets of Fatima because I was in Rome. And in the Fatima, prediction by Lucia, there was Francisco, Lucia, Jacinta, I think, were the three children.
Yeah.
Lucia was the only one that was around. And she said that there would be a murder of a bishop of Rome in white. And that was the third Fatima prediction.
Yeah.
Well, I was living there when Ali pointed the gun at Pope John Paul, but there was a nun next to Ali that was named Lucia, and she took her elbow and she hit him at the time he was pointing the gun, and it did not kill the Pope. It just wounded him. And it's fun. It's incredible because her name was Lucia. It wasn't the same person, but she moved the gun, and the Pope ended up forgiving Ali, went to the prison and hugged his assassin. And the Pope knew, because the Pope was very interesting, that he escaped because of a chain that didn't happen. So then that Pope went all over the world. He went all over the world. He knew to promote peace. My feeling is this, that you can have change. All you have to do is have one bomb, destroy millions of people, and everybody will come together. Everybody will feel, oh, we love each other. That's too bad. All these people died. You can do it that way. You can do it that way. That will have change. But why do we need to kill each other and have bombs and have tragedy? Why do we need to have a tsunami? Why do we need to have an earthquake for people to come together? So I want to leave this with, we have a choice. We can create the future. Decide if you want tragedy. Decide if you want to come together. We are all the same. We are all the same. So if you want to come together, then you can avoid the tsunami, the earthquake, the tragedy, because those are vibrations. They happen because of vibrating planet. The planet is not happy. This is not a happy planet. You're going to have it react. The planet is alive, but then I found out the UFO is alive.
Yes.
And the ET is alive. So the ET is mixing the consciousness with the UFO. It does not use a steering wheel and buttons. So if you look at that concept, then you know we have a choice. So I made a choice. I want peace. I want understanding. I want information. I want to be of service, help. Because I think they're helping us. So we need to help also. And I think you'll get very much the same message from Sixto and all the other contactees you talk to.
Yes, I'm trying to do the same thing, just to get the information to the Hungarian audience, because there are so many cases out there, so many highly credible, well-known, respected researchers out there like yourself. You can call yourself a journalist or not a UFO researcher, fine, but that who does field investigation like yourself, and I'm just trying to be in the middle to get get these people, to introduce these people's work to the Hungarian audience, because there is so much more than just, oh yeah, there was Roswell, but I don't really believe it, and oh yeah, everything is just in the US. No, it's not just in the US. Like you said, it's all over the place, especially more contact we have in South America as well. So, but yes, unfortunately, this war is just like, you see now, it's Israel, Iran, and now you got the US involved. I'm like, I just don't like this. I don't like the way things looking at right now. Again, even though, yes, we try to do our best to live in peace, but I don't know how can we stop all these war machine people, unfortunately.
I'll just address the war thing. I mean,
yes,
if enough people have a consciousness where they don't want it, it's not going to happen. So, and we're powerful. We're not victims. We're powerful. You start with being loving to your family, to the people next door. You start with modeling the behavior. You can't just have it come out of your mouth. So don't give up. Don't give up, because there will be change. There's always change. And you have to first want it. It's the intention. You have to want the change. You have to look at the planet as a living entity. You have to go out and talk to the stars. You have to be close to your family. You cannot hate your family and not want war.
Mm.
You have to model the behavior you want. You have to be the peace. And if you wanted to do a gift for me, I always play John Lennon's Imagine before I lecture. And I'd love you to play that in any documentary that you have me in. Because when I was in Argentina and I played Imagine by John Lennon, everybody was crying because it is universal. It is universal. And he left us that gift. Music is a gift.
Yeah.
That is something that I love. Is my business card reads Imagine, because we can do it. I mean, of course, all our intention together, we can change things. We're not victims of, powerful. We can say no, and we can have a choice every day of our lives. So you have to regain that intellectual stimulus, that power, spirituality of saying, no, I don't want to live like that. I'm not going to do it. So the Imagine is so beautiful. So think about that when you get depressed. Sabi, play Imagine by John Lennon and know, that everybody is doing that and saying.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your valuable time. I'm pretty sure that the Hungarian audience will love your your work and attitude and for the phenomena and what you have done for the community. Like I said, like 80 years old and you still going field investigating. Like, oh wow, like yes, not many people do that.
Go on my Patreon because every month I give lectures, and if they understand English, they can have all my videos and all my lectures on Patreon. Patreon is a format where I can talk and I can give them lectures, and then they can talk back and forth to me. So they have to go online and subscribe to Patreon, which that would help me.
Yes, I will do it, and I will put all your links as well below the video, definitely. So yes, thank you very much again for being here, Paola. Thank you.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, or brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Over here, up there, I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, and it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near.
And it looked what, sort of round, white, luminescent, and silent?
Silent, and it looked dark, like black or grey in the middle, and had white lights, just looked like light bulbs, you know? Just going off, on, blink, 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 round the bottom, and on top was a red light.
If you see a little note on walls and bridges, it says, I saw a UFO. And I was just finished doing walls and bridges. I'd mastered it, or done the last tape of it, and I was really just relaxed and feeling good. And it was summer in New York, and I had the window open, and lo and behold, there was this thing just hovering sort of 100 yards away. But I saw it so close, it wasn't in the sky or nothing, you know? And it was like I could have hit it with a brick if I'd thrown a stone at it. I couldn't see the colours because it was dusk. It was a good, clear summer night. You know, the sky was very clear. And round the bottom of it were just ordinary-looking electric light bulbs, blinking off and on alternatively, like on a billboard or something. And on the top of it was a red light. And the thing I noticed was that there was no noise, and I could hear that freeway down below, all the cars going. So I realized, oh, it's not a helicopter, then it must be a balloon. But it was so close to the rooftop that it couldn't be a balloon. So all the rational things I went through, it's not a helicopter, balloon. Not a balloon, it's too close to the roof, and it's maneuvering too well to be a balloon. So I just watched it, and it was there for about 5 or 10 minutes. It went off down the East River, and there it was, and that's all I've got to say about it.
Well, it was on our rooftop. You know, when you see that picture of the T-shirt that says New York City on it, that's where we lived. That was our balcony. And what had happened was that we were on the balcony, and it turned out that all of a sudden, John was out there after a summer's night, and he's just out there because we faced the East River, and as we were facing the river, you could, he's just having a cigarette smoke, and he's looking out and just relaxing, and it's Friday night, and all of a sudden he says, oh, he sees this bright lights, and he thought, oh, it's got to be from the billboard signs. Now, meanwhile, I'm in the other room looking to put on some clothes because I just ordered pizza, and so it was quite funny, and so he's standing out there, and picture it, on top of that's dark, but he's out there standing nude.
Right.
Out there.
Okay.
There's John standing in the buff. And he realized, he says, wait a minute, we don't live in an area where there's, billboard signs. So he turned his head, and he saw this thing. And he's yelling for me, and now I'm sitting in the other room going, yeah, okay, fine, I'm not paying attention. And he yells, and he goes, now. And now I come running out, and now we have 2 people who are in the buff standing out, and I'm going, what is that? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he goes, look, and I said, oh my God. And I realized it's a UFO, and I'm going, and he goes, you're seeing what I'm seeing. I said, and I'm screaming, oh my God, it's a UFO. And there's nobody, not my neighbor who has a staircase that, that they could have come up and said, is this anything wrong? And I'm screaming, and there are not one apartment is lit up anywhere around us. And I realized afterwards, and I watched this thing for about a good solid 10 to 15 minutes. It was slow moving, and it was not that far above my head. I could see the outline. It had white lights that were going on and off, and it had one solid red light on top.
So how close was it, would you say, May? How close was it?
I would say it was about 2 or 3 stories above our head.
And all of a sudden I hear him yelling out to me going, May, come out here. So I go running out to the terrace, and I go, what is it? I mean, what? And I stopped, and I looked up, and I saw this saucer-like thing over our head, just going over us very, very slowly, like a snail. And as it was flying over us, it just sort of wavered. It just tilted, went on sort of on its side a little, and I'm screaming, "It's a UFO!" And there was no noise coming out of it. That's what was amazing.
John Lennon didn't keep the sighting to himself. He called the police, and they told him they'd already gotten 3 calls. He called a newspaper. They'd gotten 6. Within days, John Lennon was also on the phone to a radio station, where he spoke to all who were tuned in.
They were worried that he had too much influence. This is the theory, that he had too much influence over the minds of young people especially. If you happen to be running a CIA propaganda operation or a Men in Black propaganda operation, John Lennon's your guy.
Sziasztok, remélem tetszett az interjú. Ha így van, ne felejtsd el lájkolni a videót, feliratkozni a csatornára, és megosztani legalább egy ismerősöddel. Ezzel rengeteget segítesz a munkámban. Köszönöm, hogy végignézted, és további szép estét kívánok.